Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Okay, great. Okay, everyone, welcome to the 2021 Spring Fung Fellowship Conservation and Technology Final Presentation Showcase. We're really excited to have all of you with us today. We have, sorry, am I breaking up? I just heard someone talk over me. Okay, everyone, welcome to the 2021 Spring Fung Fellowship Conservation and Technology. Do you guys hear that? Final Presentation Showcase.
It's a technological glitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's being repeated. I don't know how that happens.
Heard someone talk over me. Okay, everyone, welcome to the 2021 Spring.
Why doesn't everybody who doesn't need to talk right now mute?
Yeah, everyone please mute.
It's a technological glitch.
Yeah.
Ash, do you have the YouTube going on in your background?
I don't. I'm closing all of my windows. I don't have it open.
Why doesn't everybody who doesn't need to talk right now
This is fantastic. Yeah, everyone please mute.
It's kind of embarrassing.
Do you have the YouTube going on in your background?
I don't.
Everybody's muted now.
Gosh, you have to unmute.
Yeah, everyone's muted now, so it was one of us. I didn't find it open on any of my screens, but
You're muted again.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be careful here while I check everything. That was a weird, surreal moment. Muted now, so it was one of us. I didn't find it.
Gosh, I think it is coming from you. Maybe if you lower, I don't know, your volume, there's got to be some window open that's feeding back on your own laptop.
Okay, I've literally closed every single window. Let's see what happens. Okay. That was wild. Okay, I've literally closed every single window. Let's see what happens. Well, welcome to my stand-up comedy routine. This is how I like to begin, like the final presentation of, of an entire year. I don't know what to do, guys. I've tried. Well, welcome
Josh, I think you might be sharing your computer audio. So
this is how I
like
like
the share screen menu.
You
might want to turn that off. I think that's what it might be.
I don't know what to do, guys. I've tried. Well, welcome
Josh, I think you might be sharing your computer audio. So
this is how I like
the share screen menu.
You guys, I've tried. I'm gonna leave and come back.
Josh, I think you might be sharing your computer audio. So
this is how I like
the share screen menu.
This was a planned, sort of humor part to the showcase. So I hope y'all are enjoying it. Yeah, exactly. This is our SNL cold open for the day.
It's so typical of this year, and I hope that it's not going to come back and I'll hear my words again soon. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for bearing with us, everyone. Seriously, we actually did test some of these things beforehand, believe it or not, and so we're as surprised as you are.
Seriously, it's typical. It's just that's what happens, you know. I think it's happened to all of us, especially when you really want everything to work, is when it does this.
And did you have any just introductory kind of announcements?
Yeah, maybe we should just get started. Hopefully Akash will be back with us very soon, but we have kind of a historic moment here tonight in that the very first year of the Fung Fellowship's Conservation Plus Tech course is coming to a close. And it's wonderful that everyone is with us tonight. We have some very special guests, some dignitaries in the audience with us tonight, and we'll be hearing from them towards the end. But I know that the students really want to get into their presentations. We have some, I know we just have some fantastic presentations ahead of us. Each one of these student teams have been partnered with a organization working in conservation in the real world. And they've worked for the entire spring semester with a representative from that organization. They are all with us tonight. So the teams will be presenting, and then we'll be hearing from those representatives on that whole experience that they had with the students. We're also grading them tonight. So they're getting a grade for this presentation. So Dave and I are in the background. We'll be making some notes. We'll be scoring some points. So we might also have some questions for each of you. Then also Adrienne Greer from the Fung Fellowship will be keeping time. She interrupts you and asks you to move along. Don't take it personally. We just need to stay on schedule. And with that in mind, hopefully we'll get Akash back.
I'm back. So you know what it was, guys? It was Slack. Slack was open. And for some reason, Slack was on the live stream. And so I'm sorry about that. I figured it out. Okay, so yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Dan, for taking over and doing the intros. I think we can just jump right into our first team just without wasting too much time, right?
Yeah, I just want to say that among the special guests, we also have 3 people who will be introducing later on who are giving out very special awards. They are playing judge tonight, and we have some special awards for 3 teams. So we'll hear from them later, but that will be an exciting moment as well. Yes, take it away, Akash.
Yes, so we're really excited for Team 4 to join us on the stage. I wanted to have this whole thing. I wanted to talk about like the year, and we'll get into that at the end. But for now, let's jump right into the presentations. Each team will, like Dan's already explained everything. You have a set amount of time. Listen for the buzzer or for Adrienne to give you your cues. But you guys have the stage now, so go ahead.
Can we see my screen?
We can see it.
Okay, gotcha. But anyway, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for the teaching team and guests for joining us today while we present our semester's work. We are Team 4, the team behind Empower AR. As a small team, each of us had the opportunity to gain hands-on experience on all aspects of the project, granted the mission of empowering the next generation of conservationists virtually anywhere. For this project, our partner was High Impact, an education consulting firm based in the United Kingdom. They host workshops in educational institutions throughout the UK, utilizing creative media and technology to aid schools in socially deprived areas. They aim to give opportunities to mainstream primary and secondary schools and its pupils within the UK education system that they otherwise would not have. Many of the students never had the opportunity to explore the outdoors, connect with nature, and learn about various conservation issues, on top of the social deprivation mentioned previously.
Inspired by the ambitious mission of our partner organization, High Impact, we were motivated to tackle the how might we question. How might we use immersive technologies to educate and motivate new generations to take action on the current unsustainable rates of deforestation and species loss? The most widely used immersive technologies we're talking about here in education are virtual reality and augmented reality, and VR or AR in short. And we decided to choose AR for our project because it is often more user-friendly to create, more accessible, and easier to experience compared to VR, which will hopefully allow our design solution to impact a broader audience. As can be seen from these numbers, the demand and market, next slide, please. These numbers, the demand and market of AR are huge, and hence its impact potential. And our design journey, if we can go to the next slide, started with a good amount of research and learning. None of our team members were experienced with any of the technologies I explained just now, but we met with experts in the field, conducted research with the target age groups, and experimented with various platforms and resources to build new skills. And we discovered great technologies, some of which we ended up failing to incorporate into our design, and others proved to be a great match for our design goals. Then, in the testing phase, we received user, peer, and staff feedback and redesigned to address these new challenges. Design is never perfect as we know it, so we were always listening, and we frequently referred back to our core team values and mind maps.
Through extensive user testing, our team evaluated our solution with actual potential users, primary and secondary school students, in order to create and iterate upon the most human-centric prototypes. We received a good mix of positive and corrective feedback, as one user conveyed great enthusiasm around their immersive experience, while another expressed that they wish they could have gained greater insight on the tangible ways they could get involved in endangered species protection. So based on what we gathered from relevant stakeholders, including students themselves, educators, and disability advocates, we wanted to highlight some of the key design iterations that were made in our prototypes. In this case, we found that the color scheme on the first iteration was not inclusive of individuals with disabilities, such as dyslexic users who are sensitive to the stark contrast of Black text on a pure white background, so it was revised to improve readability for all potential users. Additionally, the first iteration didn't convey sufficient imagery, so we replaced the cartoon figure with a real-world image of the endangered species we hope to highlight. Next slide. In another instance, going back to the feedback we received from a user who wanted to learn about the tangible ways they could get involved in conservation efforts, we included a section with a list of actions they could take to protect endangered species. Finally, by realizing that the language on the first iteration of the question had an unintended impact, we changed the wording so it could instead empower audience members to take action while simultaneously bringing awareness to the species that are currently endangered.
Hi, I'm Heather.
So
I
here's
want
an
to learn more
example
about conservation.
of one of our target users. She just introduced herself, and she's supposed to be like an elementary age student that we'll be targeting. So their particular school is participating in one of High Impact's workshops centered around biodiversity and the deforestation crisis. So you can go to the next slide, please. So here we have an outline of Heather's journey while participating in High Impact's conservation workshop at their elementary school. So the workshop is based around Heather's engagement with conservation efforts, and our purpose by creating our prototypes is to allow the students to see themselves as change makers through our immersive AR experiences. So the workshop will begin with the students' initial interest in conservation and then further exploration of these concepts through the use of our face filter and trading cards, which give more background and issues regarding endangered species. And then our scavenge AR game will allow students to engage with the subject matter. So we'll be demonstrating those in just a moment. You can go to the next slide, please.
During our ideation process, we really wanted to mimic the success of something that encapsulated all of our childhoods, trading cards such as Pokemon and baseball cards. So we channeled our inner child and designed species trading cards, which retained the magic of the cards while introducing innovative ways of learning with AR. However, we wanted to ensure that our product was relevant to our partners' locale. Thus, we decided to highlight the conservation efforts of the Chester Zoo in Liverpool as part of our starting set of cards. The cards provide the user with the spark notes of the animal with some quick facts, such as its reason that it was designated as an endangered species and a call to action. On the next slide, we'll have a demo for you all to see.
Let's say that I'm a student at one of the in-person workshops that High Impact hosts in the future for the purposes of this demo. Step 1, I first go to Empower AR's Padlet link, and this is where I can access all of the AR files for the animal trading cards. Since this activity only supports iOS for now, I know to have my device and trading card ready. If I scroll down, I can see some instructions to get started. Step 2, I chose spider monkeys during the workshop because I wanted to learn more about them, so now I can go to the AR column and open the file titled spider monkey. Then if I press the cube in the top right corner, I can hover the AR program over the card. I'm using Safari right now, but if I were using Chrome, then it'll automatically open the program for me. Now step 3, I have my Spider Monkey trading card handy here, so let me try it out. So now I can see information about spider monkeys, like understanding why they are endangered, what actions are currently being done to save them, and how I can get involved to protect them, as well as some facts on the left.
So in addition to the unique delivery of the information, each of our products come coupled with an interactive lesson plan for educators and conservation enthusiasts to share and practice. And on the next slide, this is a video of one of our immersive AR games. So this demo features a user's journey as they immerse themselves in the oceans of the world. This is just one example of the many topics that can be highlighted by using the customizable Scavenge AR game format. Special shout out to Khan for being our model in that demo. The next slide will have an equally interesting product. This is our interactive face filter, which is really designed to make conservation more engaging, more fun for younger generations and older generations. This filter reflects our team's effort to empower users to really see themselves as change makers. And after incorporating feedback from our midterm check-in, we have redesigned the filter as a way for students to guess which species need saving. And though our target audience is primarily primary and secondary school students, our team decided to go above and beyond and create a face filter that people of all ages can enjoy.
After creating our Empower products, we kind of needed to assess the risks and the benefits. And from what we could tell, the products were relatively low risk with high benefits. The largest potential risk we saw was student hopelessness, right? A lot of these students would be reading these about endangered species, conservation efforts, what they can do, and it might just seem too much, too overwhelming, and it just might make them feel like, you know, maybe they can't do anything, right? And that's just a real problem that maybe more testing could fix. But the largest benefit we assessed was that the products will provide a fun and accessible way for students of all age groups to become more knowledgeable about conservation. Professionally, our products are easily implemented within formal and formal education spaces due to its accessibility and lesson plans. Next slide. So our products have a potential for real-world impacts on all the age groups, but I wanted to highlight for our AR trading cards, we foresee it to be the potential for it to be used in classroom settings as a fun, interactive lesson plan accompaniment to conservation/biodiversity lessons, make it easier for your teachers to really get involved. For the face filters, we see the potential for it to be used outside the classroom and maybe get big on social media platforms such as Snapchat and TikTok, where you can use these face filters and maybe make it a little trend, right? And for Scavenge AR, we really see it as being used in both informal and formal education spaces. Think of Emporium in San Francisco, the Lawrence Hall of Science, where kids can use these and go outside and interact and learn more than what they could in a real classroom. And next slide.
So here's an overview of some of the challenges we faced while creating our prototypes. So we are specifically creating our prototypes for students currently enrolled in schools High Impact works with in the UK. However, we are also have been looking for ways to incorporate students with various resources available to them. And we did this particularly by trying to use several AR formats, including face filters, but also our species trading cards. And our team also has a passion for curriculum development and conservation efforts. However, as we've mentioned, it has been a challenge to learn so many new skills and programs like Spark AR, Scavenge AR, Unreal, etc., with very limited formal training. So we have attempted to strike a balance between informing students, specifically our younger audiences, about threats to biodiversity like poaching and wildlife forest fires, without creating a sense of dread and helplessness by including ways for students to get involved and make a direct impact. You can go to the next slide, please.
So this is Empower AR's timeline for the next 8 months. First, we'll finalize the larger activity plan that will include each prototype and for the 3 different age groups, as well as including technical guides. And once that part is approved, High Impact will test the prototypes with the students in the UK so that we can get buy-in from the schools and officially launch these new prototypes as part of their regular workshops. And ultimately, we do want to build new immersive technologies, for example, VR games and incorporating 3D printing for a second launch in the UK and beyond. And next slide, please. So how do we achieve these milestones? First step is to add the accessibility features, for example, using voice over text for the trading cards and including background sounds in the Scavenge AR game targeted towards species loss and deforestation. And our existing prototypes focus on AR. So the next step is to research existing VR games that have a focus on species loss so that we can use Unity to build out a prototype. And then lastly, we'll work with High Impact to devise a plan to expand our audience to schools beyond the UK and other parts of Europe, as well as the US. And through this, Empower AR can further our mission of creating an immersive experience for students so that they can become environmental stewards through learning about conservation issues.
I learned so much about conservation. Thank you for coming with me on this journey.
Yes, so now we are open to questions. And in the meantime, if you have your iOS devices readily available, you can try out the trading card prototype and we will paste the Padlet link in the chat.
Excellent job, guys. I think if folks want to play with it in the background, feel free to do that. But I'd like to open up the floor for question and answer first with the partner organization. You have the floor to ask quite any questions or any clarifying comments, or just what would you like to?
That would be Phil.
Yeah.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Brill. Do you know what? It's so amazing seeing the journey that the students have taken with the things that they've created, and I couldn't be more happy with the way it turned out. So I can already see, you know, I could go in the office in the morning and show my colleagues the Padlet, and there will be a buzz in the office of what they've created. And we have, you know, we've already got a meeting with Chester Zoo to show them the prototype. So yeah, I'm just really, I'm blown away by just what they've created is fantastic. And the timeline that they've got for their next steps is absolutely spot on as well. So yeah, really well done, guys.
Thank you. We have the support of a great partner.
Yeah, and if the teaching team, and also I'm going to open it up to the rest of the class as well. If you have any questions, feel free to jump in.
I have a clarifying question. By the way, excellent presentation. I agree with Phil 100%. You guys went above and beyond. I'm just so happy by this, by seeing what you've created and knowing that it's going to be used in the real world. That is just very special. So your 3 products, my one question really is, what keeps them fresh? Meaning, you know, let's say I play the game or I interact with the AR. Is it one and done, or are there things that I have to look forward to that will keep me engaged with these products?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can start it off, and if anyone wants to jump in towards the end, we were thinking, we didn't explicitly state this in the presentation, but we were thinking to kind of create a rolling set of species that we would introduce in the cards and within all of our other products too. So based on our partners' needs and what they want to highlight that sort of like season, we would highlight those in our programming and have relevant curriculum to be to go right alongside it in classrooms. So this season would be these sample ones as our test case. And then as we work with Chester Zoo and as Phil works with his stakeholders, we'll adapt them based on feedback and what animals need the spotlight on them for action.
Great. Thank you.
I have a quick question. So looking at the 3 products that you and wonderfully prototyped for us, is there an intention to this is thinking looking forward, right? So looking forward, how can you integrate, for example, the AR experience with the card AR experience with the more environmental / outdoor oriented experience? Can there be? Have you guys thought about as a team in ways in which curriculum or integration can happen across the product lines? Can you guys?
Yeah.
Did you guys hear me? Oh.
Yeah. I was just waiting to see if anyone wants to jump in. But to answer your question, there is definitely potential to that. Scavenge AR is a fairly new program, so there isn't too much that you're able to do there. But like you saw in the demo that we had, you can add an image. So maybe we can add like a specialized game for each animal. So like the spider monkey can have its own Scavenge AR one. So I think you're definitely right. That is important feedback. So you can kind of have continuity throughout all your different products. So it's not just 3 separate products, it's kind of all flows well. So from the lesson plan, from the trading cards, the scavenger AR, to also the face filter. So that's definitely important feedback that we'll share with Phil and also put our end report to him too. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. And we have we have Sam Rubin, who's one of our guest judges today. He has a question, so his hand is raised. Go ahead, Sam.
First off, great job. Really think it's an awesome concept. I love the idea of Pokemon Go for conservation. I am curious what portion of the $50 billion market by 2024 you think you'll be able to capture, and kind of what your growth perspective is of that. And just one comment, I'm not sure having a black man have a monkey show up over his head was the best look, and something just to be aware of. That's but otherwise, yeah, I thought it was a great job, and just kind of curious what your plans are for growth over time.
I can start answering this one if anybody wants to continue. To address your second concern first, this is Spark AR. When we downloaded the file, these are just pre-selected people that we had no control over, and also
Gotcha, okay.
which one it lands on. It was it's completely random, as you see from our presentation. So it's just 100% was not anything that we had decided on doing. If that something came up, we would have definitely not have done that. And secondly, to address your first question about market concerns, the conservation market and VR is huge right now. As you see, Oculus Quest 2 just came out recently, and of course Oculus One are huge in the market currently, with so many different things and experiences, both free and paid, are just bursting through the market. I truly believe that AR and VR are, the future of different experiences. And with our comprehensive plan to address different sectors, both VR, AR, and offline into social media, I believe that we can capture multiple different markets, even if, one isn't the most successful. Thank you.
Can I just add on a little bit there as well? In terms of sort of market capture, it would be the way we'd be marketing it as a company is we would be going to partners. So you may have individual cards that Chester Zoo might hand out to visitors or to school groups that attend the zoo. They might also then have static large print versions of them around the enclosures and what have you, so people can just get their phones out and scan them and then take them away at the end of the day with the sort of the handheld ones. So in terms of revenue for them, for the group as a company, they'd be able to acquire that through contracts with providers with clients and providing that service. So rather than say putting an app out for $2 or whatever on the App Store, it'd be more gaining contracts with people who require these services. That's how we'd see it going forward as a company.
Gotcha. So less focusing on the end user, more focused on the zoo, the educational institution, whoever would be leveraging that to add to as an add-on to their existing experience. Got it.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have one more small question from Tyus, and then we're going to move on to team 3.
Hey, I just wanted to say I loved the presentation. The platform was incredible. If I had this as a kid, my parents would have never seen me. I would be outside probably up to my age right now. But so great job, guys. I was curious, just in terms of like user experience, if you could expand a little bit on like the depth of detail that individuals and people interacting with these cards can actually like garner from it, because that elephant in that photo is an Indian elephant, and there are 3 species of elephants that can be found around the globe. And I was just curious, if a student or if an individual or a child like wanted to go into further detail, like actually how broad and like actually how elaborate the species of elephants are, can you do that, or does it just give you a broad and like generalized idea of like elephants? Because some individuals might not know how to distinguish, but some people who do have more experience do. And so I was just curious, because some people have an idea of elephants being more specifically in Africa, and it would be cool for kids to go like, oh, I didn't know that they also exist in Asia too.
Yeah, that's a great point. We were aiming for the cards to kind of be something pretty general, so we wouldn't state it specifically on the cards itself. What we were hoping to do is put that onto the educator that's interacting with the students to make it more of a personal experience. Because in our research and user testing, we saw that kids' attention span is, as you would imagine, is pretty short. So they wouldn't be able to capture all that information in a meaningful way from the AR cards. So we wanted the educator to share it with them, but that also kind of forces a conversation to happen, or a child or any person of any age can say, hey, I have a question. I didn't know that you can find elephants outside of the continent of Africa too. So we wanted a more of an organic conversation to happen surrounding conservation, and not directly put on the cards. So we can still have some of that human aspect of it, even though we're introducing some of these immersive technologies.
Great. I love the answer. I appreciate it. I was just curious when to get some clarity.
Yeah, definitely. But I think we'll also add that feedback too. So we can talk about it, Phil, maybe tailor it to each partner organization depending on what exact species they have. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, guys.
Okay, well, I wish we could spend another 10, 20 minutes in question and answer, because it's such a lively dialogue. But unfortunately, we have time constraints, so we have to move on. Thank you, Team 4. What a way to kick off the showcase. But we're going to move on to Team 3 now. You guys have the stage. Are you guys ready, Team 3? I hope I'm not frozen. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Wait on Team 3 to show up.
Erica, are you here? Erica's going to be the one first presenting the slides.
That's okay. We can be a little patient here. We have about a 1 minute of buffer here. So.
In the meantime, I really want to say thank you, Phil. All of our partner representatives this semester have just been absolutely fantastic. But each and every one of you deserves a lot of thanks, and I wish we could spend much more time thanking you, but obviously you did a great job mentoring these students. So really hope to work with you again soon.
Just wait one moment. We're trying to get somebody else to present.
That's okay. And if you guys, we'll give you about 30 more seconds, and then we'll see if Team 1, if we can queue you up just in case to go next, in the case that Team 3 is not able to present right away. And someone from Team One, just give me a acknowledgement that you would be willing to go sooner rather than later if you had to.
So he gave a thumbs up.
Okay, great. Oh, here we go.
Do you see just my screen of the Google Drive?
We do.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, sorry guys for the delay. We had some technical difficulties with people in the group, but I'll take that. We'll start in just a sec. All right, well, thank you everyone for coming. We are Algae Alert. Go to the next slide. And here is our team. Next slide. And so before we start going into our project, I want to prelude our presentation by acknowledging the trauma and abuse many Native American tribes have faced and are facing in the US, especially with academic institutions such as our own UC Berkeley. And it's important to our team, as well as the Fung Fellowship, that we understand this issue in order to make sure that we can grow and be more accepting and understanding of our Indigenous communities. And so I've also included a resource here, and we can also provide more if anyone wants to read anything more and learn about the background of these impacts and previous encounters. And so next slide, and we can start going into our presentation. Here's just a brief background of what we're going to be going into with the background of the problem and an introduction to our partners. We'll start jumping into an ideation process and our final prototypes. Next slide. And now with the background, next slide. And so many of us have probably seen bodies of water which are covered in blue-green algae type layer or film. And so these bodies of water are usually slow moving and still. And this layer of blue-green algae, AKA cyanobacteria, are often harmless, especially when there's very small quantities. However, a large buildup of this algae can cause an increase of cyanotoxins. And these are essentially waste molecules that come from the metabolic processes of these bacteria and can be harmful to both marine life as well as humans that interact with infested water or fish in these waters. And so right now, the Trinity River, part of the Hoopa Valley Reserve, and that runs through the Hoopa Valley Reserve, faces the challenge of mitigating these algal blooms, as well as mitigating some of the cyanotoxins that are flowing from upstream blooms. And so we've partnered with the Hoopa Valley Tribe, as well as EFC West, who are members of the larger umbrella group, Earth Island, who work with Indigenous groups around the globe. Next slide. And so in order to help solve this problem, my group was given the task of designing and implementing a coordinated region-wide blue-green algae mitigation plan for the Trinity River system, as well as help the Hoopa Valley Tribe educate their community members so that they can avoid and protect themselves from blue-green algae toxins. Next slide. And so our initial plan took two very straightforward pathways to this, how might we? Next slide. We needed to mitigate and educate, just like we do for many environmental problems. And therefore, after the first half of the semester, we had designed 3 branches of our solutions. We had contacted and coordinated to groups local to the Hoopa Valley Reservation, such as Humboldt University and other experts, to start a driftwood project meant to create cooler environments for recreation and fish spawning where algal blooms couldn't grow. We also began designs for a system using UV light to kill bacterial blooms and prevent further toxin release. And finally, coordinated with both an offshore team as well as a local US team to create a machine learning system to create a predictive model, which can be used to assess the safety of recreational waters over the course of the year in the long term. Next slide. However, at the end of March, we had the opportunity to meet with Ken, an expert in blue-green algae blooms, as well as a member of the Hoopa Valley Tribe. And after meeting with him, we had to reevaluate what was important to the tribe. We also understood that some of the efforts the tribe had already made and what they saw to be most helpful for them. And this is when we decided to take a little bit of a leap of faith. One of the core values we had discussed as a team going into the design process was that we needed to be both respectful and open to the ideas of the tribe, and that we didn't want to force any solution our partners were not comfortable with implementing. And so we decided to shift our focus and our how might we to something quite different. And so we moved away from our focus of mitigation towards a mindset of empowerment and access. And this brought us to our new how might we. We decided to create a solution which would empower the Hoopa Valley community to access intra-tribe cyanobacterial information and demystify its meaning. This meant increasing access to information and its interpretation for different demographics and different learning styles. Next slide.
We designed 2 prototypes, which are an app that targets 9 to 14-year-olds and a text hotline that targets adults. To engage younger demographics, next slide, please. We gamified the educational material on cyanobacteria. We were inspired by games like Homescapes, where you restore a dilapidated mansion, and Flappy Bird, which is a simple but super fun game. We came up with the idea of River Run, a game where you complete challenges to help maintain and restore the health of a river ecosystem. Next slide, please. Our user is 12-year-old Julian, a middle schooler and a Hoopa Valley tribe member. He loves playing games on his phone, as well as swimming in the Trinity River with his friends. During a recent swim, he noticed a bad smell coming from algae patches in the river. He doesn't know much about algal blooms, but wants to learn more because the health of the Trinity is really important to his identity and culture. Next slide. Here is our app prototype, and we incorporate the user feedback as well. So there's supposed to be sound. I don't think the audio is being shared.
I think, Jenna, you need to share your audio from your computer.
Can you hear it?
No. So Jenna, you might want to unshare and then click share again, and then click share audio, share computer audio. There's a little checkbox when you're selecting the window. It's at the bottom left
Can
corner.
you hear me though? Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much for your patience, everybody. Okay. Let me know if you can hear it.
Features, River Run, alerts, news, and learn more. He starts with the game and sees that there's a salmon who needs his assistance to swim up the Trinity River. Through this dialogue with the salmon, Julian learns about harmful algal blooms and cyanobacteria. If he's unsure what a word means, he can click for a definition and then continue playing. He learns about the harmful impacts of cyanotoxins on animals and humans, what the blooms might look like, and the fact that they can clog the salmon's gills. And so the salmon needs help, which is the point of the game. Julian starts with level 1, which is to avoid 3 clumps of cyanobacteria. When we were first ideating, we actually had the fish dodging pipes, exactly like Flappy Bird, but we received feedback that the game should depict a more realistic environmental issue impacting the river, not just a bunch of pipes. So we made the fish dodge cyanobacteria instead, which makes sense scientifically as well because cyanobacteria clogs their gills. Julian has now completed level 1 and can move on to level 2, but let's skip ahead because you get the point. After each level, the salmon continues the dialogue and informs Julian about the causes of cyanobacteria and harmful algal blooms, which include climate change and nutrient runoff. Skipping forward again, Julian has now finished 10 levels, so he gets a simple trivia question to check his understanding. This one asks, what must he not do if he sees cyanobacteria in the river? Let's say he gets it wrong the first time, he gets some feedback and gets to try again, and this time he gets it right. By this point, Julian is worried about getting sick from cyanotoxins since he realizes that he swims in the river a lot. But he gets some reassurance. The Hoopa Tribal EPA monitors several locations among the Trinity River to determine if it's safe to swim. Julian is encouraged to check if certain locations are safe for swimming by tapping the Alerts tab. We'll explore that later. He's also told that there's an algae alert text hotline that also sends information about water safety. He's encouraged to tell his parents about this hotline. One last task before unlocking the next levels is to clean up the cyanobacteria. This feature was suggested to us during the user focus group with Hoopa tribe members. Julian finds it very satisfying to see the cyanobacteria clumps disappear. And now he can move on to the next 10 levels. Skipping ahead again, Julian will continue to get these trivia questions after every 10 levels on various topics like deforestation, dams, and nutrient runoff pollution, so he continues to learn new things throughout the game. Now we have these additional features, all suggested by people in the user focus group. Let's say Julian is curious about the Learn More tab. Here he can explore different environmental science topics, such as these different types of algae. Next, he checks out the News tab and sees news articles relevant to his local river system. He sees an article about the Klamath River Dam Removal Project, and another one about political conflicts regarding river flow management, which could greatly impact his tribe. And lastly, he looks at alerts to check if certain areas are safe to swim. Green means safe and red means unsafe. Now Julian is reminded of the text hotline that he read about while playing River Run. He decides to tell his mom to subscribe to the hotline so she can stay informed.
Our second prototype in the wait, can you? Is there some background? No, never mind. Our second prototype is the Algae Alert Hotline. Our team was inspired by another fun project called Shotline, which lets users call to sign up for the COVID vaccine. Shotline has the ability to provide information to users without internet, as well as utilizes volunteers for data collection. We were lucky to have some guidance from the students of Shotline, which helped us build our hotline. Another inspiration was the already existing Dead Fish Hotline that is also accessible to users without internet, as well as contributes knowledge on cyanobacteria blooms. We wanted our hotline to be accessible to those without internet service as well, but also be more user-friendly and easier to gather data with, so we landed on our current text hotline. From a focus group, we had, next slide, please. From a focus group we had with the members of the Hoopa Valley tribe, we altered our initial hotline prototype into what it is today. A few major suggestions we had were to add an option for users to send in photos of cyanobacteria so a user would easily be able to report and volunteers would be able to catalog it. Another was to add an option to send in GPS coordinates so the location of a cyanobacteria sighting was accurate and was easier for a user to provide their location easily. Additionally, there was a suggestion to integrate the hotline into our app. These suggestions were considered for our final prototypes. Next slide, please. A user such as Jane, a resident and member of the Hoopa Valley tribe, and Julian's mom found out about the hotline through her son's time on the app and decided to try out the hotline herself. Since Julian likes to play in the river in the summer, Jane is concerned with the cyanobacteria levels and has wondered how to report sightings. With the hotline, Jane can now easily check on cyanobacteria levels and receive updates when levels change. She can even report when she sees a cyanobacteria bloom through a few easy messages. Additionally, Jane can access more information on cyanobacteria through our easy-to-read infographics. Now we'll be showing a live demo of the hotline.
And Jenna, if you could stop sharing your screen so I can share mine. All right, 1 second, everyone. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so when I first opt into the Algae Alert hotline, I'm gonna have 2 options, but first I'm gonna text opt-in. And again, sorry if there's a lag, but the first option I'm gonna receive from the hotline is to either report a cyanobacteria sighting, and the second option is to receive a current log of the cyanobacteria levels in the river. Because this is my first time opting into the hotline, I will automatically receive a current log after I text opt-in. As you can see, the logs of cyanobacteria at 4 different locations along the river are now available to me. The colors align with the safety of the water as shown in the game. Green indicates healthy water, yellow indicates that one should be cautious, and red indicates harmful levels of cyanobacteria. Now I'm going to mimic how one would use this hotline number to report a sighting. So I'm going to text the word report as the hotline tells me to. The hotline's then going to ask me to send a photo of the cyanobacteria that I have found. If I'm unsure if the algae I've seen is actually harmful, I can click this link to get more information. I can then look at these photos to help myself identify the kind of algae I'm seeing. And then I'm going to send a photo of the algae to the hotline. After I send the photo, the hotline's going to ask me to identify the location of the algae. If I want to send a GPS location, I can do that. And next, I'm going to ask the audience if anyone in the audience wants to put in the chat which location I should text back after the hotline texts me back in 1 second. So if someone wants to put A, B, C, or D in the chat, and then I'll text back.
We got a couple of C's.
Then I'm going to text back that. After I identify the location, the hotline can use this information to update their records. And that concludes the hotline demo. Next, we will discuss the long-term plans for our project, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen.
Okay, so for our long-term plans, we'll talk about some of the limitations of our prototypes and then go into the projected visions for both prototypes. So currently the hotline and the game app, they're both education tools and they're made specifically for the Hoopa Valley tribe. However, there is the potential for minimal engagement with the tribe's elder population because of reduced familiarity with technology. In addition, our prototyping is still in its early stage development because we revised our How Might We, and so there is the uncertainty with the project supervision. In addition, these tools don't address the environmental issues that are happening upstream of the river from the flow of cyanotoxins, as well as the political issues, including the role of agricultural businesses and the role of the Bureau of Reclamation. In the next slide, this is the projected vision of our app. So we plan to expand gaming features that increase the variety of playable characters like beavers and bears, and we also hope to develop a choose your own adventure so that the game can reflect the realities among other partner tribes like the Karuk and the Yurok tribes. And then in addition to these gaming features, we hope to further engage the community by collaborating with teachers and incorporating the game in learning spaces, and this will give us more feedback on how young people interact with the game. In terms of the game's longevity, we plan on applying for grants to fund the developmental costs, and if the tribe agrees, also implementing ads in order to generate revenue. And then for the next slide, this is the projected vision of our hotline, and we plan to develop the functionality of the features for integrating images of algae and reporting sightings with photos, as well as developing the GPS location reporting feature. And then in addition to these features, we want to engage the community by testing the user experience on a larger population with members from other partner tribes, and also collect feedback with our Qualtrics survey to gauge the level of awareness surrounding harmful algal blooms. For longevity, we plan on applying for grants to fund the developmental costs and then presenting its functionality at intertribal events like their annual Sovereignty Day in August. And so this last slide here is really to, as a handoff path for how our solutions can be made comprehensive and implemented in the future. So we compiled a spreadsheet of grants and we wrote grant essays that the tribe can use, and this future funding will help operate these projects. I know my time is up, but for the last slide, I just want to thank our partners, EFC West, and members of the Hoopa Valley tribe. Jill, Ken, and Gary, thank you for your time, your encouragement, your insights. It's been really humbling to work with you also. Thank you.
All right, good job, everyone. To open up question and answer, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. Sarah, are you here?
I am here.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I don't really have any questions. I mean, it's actually been, I think, developed even further from when I last saw it, and I really love the idea, and I love the fact that they were willing to kind of break away from just the app to something that actually would be accessible to the entire tribe, because I recognize that working with tribes is, especially a tribe as remote as Hoopa, can be really, really difficult. And the options aren't as big necessarily or as grand or as wide as it would be for different communities. I also really, really appreciate the acknowledgement you gave in the beginning and the respect you've given to the tribe. And I know that the tribe, Ken in particular, is just super jazzed and excited about everything that you proposed. And he really, really enjoyed working with you guys. And so did I. And I also appreciate your willingness to pivot, because I know there was a lot of effort put into kind of preventing blue-green algae, and it just turned out to be such a complex issue that it was really, really difficult to tackle. And there's just a lot of everything, politics, everything that goes into blue-green algae. And hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something too.
Thank you, Sarah.
So teaching team, now it's up to us if we have any questions. I have a question about the game. The game kind of felt like a funnel towards the hotline, or to get a young person to engage with an adult in order to make the hotline this part of their daily infrastructure. Is there an intention to I mean, there was some, what other ideas have you guys thought about in terms of the game and how extending it into other curricular or educational context?
I can answer that. So we developed the app and the game. We sort of tailored it initially toward, or currently it's tailored toward a Hoopa Valley tribe member, but there's definitely a lot of potential for it to become a more general education app. So between that and the first step, the middle step would be looking to expand the use of the app to beyond Hoopa tribes, but to other tribes in the region, such as the Yurok and Karuk tribes. So it could be an intertribal thing. It could sort of increase collaboration between tribes. It could increase data sharing. And so getting those communities to engage with each other, and then looking into launching into, more general audiences. That would be like a future step as well.
I can make one more point really quickly. The tribe itself already has like a curriculum that's set up with a lot of like information for younger kids. Honestly, K through 12 kids do already receive like education through their schooling, and so this is sort of something that would hopefully get them to start thinking about what they're learning outside of the classroom as well, because they'll hopefully be engaging with it even when they don't have a textbook or have to watch lecture, so on.
And if I can, I would like to add one last point, which is Akash was asking how it connects to the hotline. And the idea is this is like an multi-generational aspect of a prototype, and it's these prototypes work in tandem. So while the kids may, be playing, and then their grandparents are like asking them what they're playing, they may see this hotline option, and then like the parents can help guide the grandparent with the text and stuff. So it's really, the idea of this is to be multi-generational.
Thank you. We have a couple more minutes for question and answer. Is there anybody else, even in the broader class or amongst our judges, who would like to jump in and ask a question?
Just one clarifying question. By the way, great job. You took some risks. Everything Sarah said, I also agreed with. So some bonus points there. How, again, the original app game, what's the introduction to that? Is that in the classroom or is some other? How do you find out about it?
I can jump in real quick, and then if someone else wants to add, they can add as well. One really good idea that Jill, who's a member of the tribe at Hoopa Valley, recommended was that they have a festival called Sovereignty Day. And so during that time, they do a lot of they'll hand out t-shirts, hand out wristbands, do some educational flyers, which we also prepared a few flyers, which we can hand them. And hopefully on that day, they could introduce the hotline, and that would be like an initial introduction to the tribe to the hotline. In addition to that, because it can link with the education that they already are getting in their schools, we also hope that the teachers would be able to introduce it to their students as something they can engage with outside of class. And they can also manipulate what information that they're getting in the app, so that if they want to gear it towards one particular set of information, or if there's something they want to give the kids, they can also edit that themselves.
Great. Okay. By the way, the hotline, way more dynamic than I ever imagined. So great job there.
Yep. Excellent job. And I think that brings us to the end of our time with this group. So team 3, thank you so much. You all did a wonderful job. And I'm hoping we can, see guys extend that relationship with the tribe and EFC West especially. So we're gonna have to move on. We have team one next, and while they set up, what I needed, I'm running into some technical issues on my end with my broadband, so I'm gonna do a quick reset. So I'll be in and out. So I apologize if it says this meeting is being recorded. It's gonna say it again when I rejoin.
Should we do a 5-minute break while they're getting ready?
Yeah, let's do that actually. Can we do a 5-minute break? Come back at 5:06. Yeah, let's do that.
Perfect.
Come back at 5:06, everyone.
Hey, Sarah, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh.
Not Sam, Sarah.
Oh, sorry.
Sarah Diefendorf?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I look forward to debriefing with you later, but I really hope you have some tools now, things to think about, and maybe some expansion, but just your mentorship and the time you spend with the students, just fantastic. So really appreciate that. Elaine too, I believe you're here.
I think she was here if she's not still here. I know she has to jump to another meeting, so.
Oh, okay. But really appreciate it. And yeah, let's debrief later on.
Yeah, we can do that. And I appreciate it as well. The tribe was super, super happy. So.
Okay, and we'll get an edited version of everything that you can share with them. So,
okay, great.
Yeah, this is being recorded in one way, in more than one way. I know. I'm not sure which way is going to look the best. But... All right, we'll talk to you soon, and thanks for being here.
All right, thank you.
Stick around if you want, of course.
Unfortunately, I got to jump off.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, welcome back. So we have Team One, who's queued up and ready to go, and their partner org representative, Tommy Wong, just joined us as well. So we're all ready to go when you guys are ready.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start if everybody else is ready. So good evening, everyone. We are Team Envision, and for this design challenge, we partnered with Oakland Civic Design Studio to reimagine Clinton Park in Oakland's East Lake neighborhood. Our goal is to improve biodiversity and promote engagement with the outdoors. So to get things started, we wanted to introduce two of our sample users. We chose to represent a Southeast Asian grandmother and grandson due to the visitor demographics that we observed at our group's park visits, and we also found this in our own background research. So Sophia immigrated from Oakland to Oakland from Cambodia in the 1980s as a refugee. Closely connected with the refugee center, she likes to take afternoon walks with other community elders, but often worries about her safety at the park, given that there isn't much light, especially during the evening. Nathan is Sophie Heop's 12-year-old grandson. As a third-generation Asian American, he often feels disconnected from his family's Cambodian origins. Instead, he's largely attached to his iPhone, sometimes spending time at the park playing Pokemon Go or geocaching. Although they live around the neighborhood, the park is quite underutilized. Safety concerns keep both older and younger generations away from Clinton Park. So with users like Nathan and his grandmother who hold their own concerns and interests in park usage, our group pursued the following question: how might we promote conservation, civic engagement, and celebrate the sociocultural diversity of Clinton Park?
So as a team, we found that the best way to introduce our solution is to actually just walk through the experience with our users. So setting the scene, Grandma Sophia and Nathan are enjoying the early evening after getting food at one of the local Vietnamese restaurants across the street from Clinton Park. Nathan, while on his phone, finds that there's actually a geocache hidden at Clinton Park. He asks his grandmother to take him to the park, but Grandma Sophia, initially feeling hesitant and cautious, agrees, but asks Nathan if they can actually briefly visit, trying to get home as soon as they can before sundown. So Payup and Nathan actually enter the park, coming across this visual right here, a fluorescent lit sidewalk covered in bird-themed artwork that is ideally painted by the community, that community members that Civic Design Studio can partner with, whether it be schools or other arts organizations. The curious pair follows the artwork further into the park, feeling welcomed by the culturally inspired artwork and the light aggregates illuminating their path. The art and light help Grandma Sophia no longer feel as fearful for her and her grandson's safety upon entering the park. The two continue walking down the path that you saw, and they see the addition of new and different art styles and birds overlapping with the path that they're already on. Grandma Sophia recognizes one of the birds as the Cambodian giant ibis. She explains how happy she actually is to see this bird again, let alone hear about it so far away from her home country of Cambodia. So the two follow the artwork, and Nathan takes the way leading with his geocache app, and they arrive at a uniquely designed birdhouse, as you can see on the slide here. Nathan guesses it's inspired by traditional Khmer architecture based on photos he's seen from his grandma, and he looks for a hidden geocache, searching for some sort of hidden compartment. Nathan eventually finds the second physical facet of our solution, which is the geocache that we've been talking about. And it takes form of a log notebook that is hidden in the roof of one of the birdhouses that we've designed. He excitedly shows his family the notebook, reading the geocaching description and the task on the app out loud. And he also notices that there's a description written for his grandma in Khmer. Grandma Sophia is thankful for this moment because it's often rare, especially in the US, to find any signage or text in her native language. So reading the description on the app, they learn about how Oakland actually serves as an important stopping point for migratory birds, such as the yellow-rumped warbler along the Pacific Flyway. They take a moment after reading to look around Clinton Park when they suddenly notice a black-crowned night heron. Nathan gets excited because as a city kid who grew up in Oakland his entire life, he rarely does have these special close-up interactions with nature. Often his interactions with what he deems as nature are rat infestations or maybe pests, insects. So he starts to have a more positive view of the nature within the city. As Nathan tries to get a closer look at the black-crowned night heron, His grandmother reflects on the geocaching description that she read that was culturally inclusive of her own history. The two pass around the notebook that they found in the birdhouse and follow the given prompts. Write your name, where you're from, and your own story of migration to Oakland. And if you're thinking of inspiration, we did take some inspiration from Lovelox and a lot of interactive activities around the world. They spend time reading the other stories in the logbook about people in their community, as well as outside visitors. And in this moment, grandmother Sophia comes to realize the similarities between her immigrant family and some of the migratory birds that she read about on the geocaching description. All of them, bird or human, have unique stories to share of their migration journeys. Whether it was through survival or simply following the flock, each individual has a story to tell and reason that brought them all to the city and central point in Oakland. So with this logbook and birdhouse geocache, we wanted to leverage the technical app as a physical and recreational and most importantly, educational tool. We found that geocaching was more technologically accessible as opposed to something like virtual reality or even for some populations, augmented reality, and was something that already had a considerable user base, covering over 3 million geocaches that already exist worldwide. That way, locals and visitors alike could have the opportunity to interact with our birdhouses and the rest of Clinton Park. Additionally, upon visiting Clinton Park as a team, we noticed how the majority of park users appeared to be elders or older adults. And consequently, we did want to make the space more welcoming and open for younger generations by integrating an existing mobile app framework. So continuing with Grandma and Nathan, they look around the park and notice that there isn't just one cultural birdhouse, but multiple unique installations, all representing different architectural styles of the Southeast Asian countries. Nathan asks his grandmother why the birdhouses all look so different from the one they found the book in. And so Payup explains to her grandson here how she recognizes the different architectural styles from temples and other buildings across Southeast Asia, some of them including Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, some of them actually being represented in the demographic population around the immediate Clinton Park area. They put the logbook back into the birdhouse and placing the stories of Oakland's residents and visitors into a physical home that feels cared for and protected by the community. Both grandmother and grandson now feel closer to Clinton Park, having once viewed it as a somewhat intimidating and open, dark space with no other visitors. But now they both feel that the birdhouses, the geocache, and the art give them a reason to invite friends and extended family members to come and interact with the installation as well as the rest of the urban green space. Overall, we wanted to provide a foundation for this vision to give to Civic Design Studio, and our team's final prototype comprises of both the 2D and 3D art renderings that you may have seen throughout our presentation, as well as a written project proposal that is ready to go to be given to any local stakeholders such as Parks and Recreation, as well as partner organizations such as Laney College or any local schools. With that, we really wanted to emphasize its potential for growth within the community, and how easily it can be shared with the common theme of sharing a story.
The highly transformed landscapes, increased population density, and other characteristic features of urban areas make cities a major source of anthropogenic drivers of biodiversity loss. While urban green spaces, such as Clinton Park, may be limited in size, parks of all structures and sizes have been shown to have an impact in mediating these damaging effects by providing habitats to increase occupancy of native taxa, improving air quality, increasing pollination, and more. By increasing utilization of these spaces, we can bring awareness to the importance of urban parks, drive improved maintenance, greater dedication of resources, and ensure that urban green areas are no longer overlooked in city management and planning. Not only are urban green spaces important in improving our environmental health, scientific studies demonstrate that these areas can improve the health of the surrounding community as well. This includes physical, psychological, societal, and cultural, and economic health factors, such as reduced prevalence of obesity and depressive symptoms. What is listed here are just a few of the positive benefits that researchers have linked to increased access and exposure to urban green spaces. However, these benefits are often contingent on meaningful human-nature connections. But with increased technology dependence and urbanization of today's generations, the disconnect we feel with our natural environment continues to grow. The result is an enlarged blind spot concerning our dependence on nature, increased fear and intolerance of certain species, and ultimately results in a key contributor to behaviors associated with environmental destruction. Conversely, increased feelings of connection and relatedness to nature is positively associated with increased environmentally responsible behaviors and pro-environmental attitudes. Thus, in our reimagination of Clinton Park, we've taken a biocultural approach to celebrate the stories of the local community. We did so to foster meaningful human-nature interactions across generations. Our lighted pathways, for example, encourage park-goers to visit every corner of the park and improves nighttime accessibility. Our geocache offers an opportunity for community members to share their stories and learn about others, enhancing personal ties to Clinton Park. Finally, our symbolic birdhouse designs, which connect the stories of immigrant families to the movement and migration of birds, are a visual reminder of the ways in which we coexist. Human-nature connections improve public well-being and increase environmental stewardship, leading to a cascade of positive effects that have the potential to make a significant impact on the health and resilience of an urban area. Although we've presented our approach in the context of Clinton Park, our design can be scaled to fit a variety of green spaces. This design proposal challenges us to reconsider what a park experience can look like and the ways in which we approach urban biodiversity loss. And with that, we want to say a big thank you from Team Envision to the Fung Fellowship, as well as Civic Design Studio, and we welcome any questions about our design or research process.
All right, that was wonderful. So Tommy Wong from Civic Design Studio is here, and he was the primary point of contact for this team as the partner organization. I was also, just to be transparent, I was also part of these conversations as I am a member of Civic Design Studio. I'm glad, actually, thank you for coming back to this slide and sharing this. I think this wasn't played during the presentation, so we get to see some more of the perspective of the park. But Tommy, I believe Tommy's on the road right now, but he was able to be part of the whole presentation, and I want to open it up to him first to ask any questions or provide commentary.
Hello, everyone. I'm here with my daughter, Yan Yan. Come here. She won't pay attention to me, but she's a fan of UC Berkeley, and it's been amazing to have her sitting here with me, watching while I was driving this incredible presentation. And thank you so much to all the Fung Fellows for doing this. This is exactly what we needed. This is exactly what we needed for this park. There's just been so much trauma, so much crisis happening, and this kind of stuff is inspiration for a lot of people across a lot of different sectors. So thank you very much. I don't have any specific questions. I think I'm just thinking of how I'm going to be showing this to the Oakland Vietnamese Chamber, how I'm going to be showing this to the merchants, showing this to the community groups that work here, and it's incredible. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Tommy. Yeah, and I can speak also as part of Civic Design Studio. It was great to work with the team over the course of the semester, and what I truly appreciate about their approach is the narrative of migration, the biocultural approach. So you're weaving in theory about human-nature relationships here that I think is much needed, especially when we talk about solutions to human-caused environmental problems. And I like that humans can be also part of the solution in our relationships, in particular, our relationship to our green spaces and our public spaces with nature can help foster a better dynamic between us and the natural world. So anyway, good job. I don't think I have any questions. I did want to come back to this slide to get that other flyby. So I'm glad I got to see the rest of the park. But now I think we have a couple more minutes to open it up to the teaching team as well as the panel of judges or the rest of the class.
Dave, I've been hogging all the air. Why don't you ask some questions?
I don't really have a specific question, just mostly a lot of affirmation. Yeah, really, really, really well done. Even just seeing it again since when we saw your first run through and you took all these comments that we gave and really responded. I love that you have biocultural conservation in there. That's something that I'm even thinking about in my work. That's definitely relevant to your solution here. And then also the migratory bird flyovers is a great inclusion, very thoughtful and also very relevant as we're along a migration corridor here. And we hadn't seen the prototype yet, and this 3D rendering is amazing. So yeah, really, really exceptionally done. And I hope that, as Tommy said, that this can be used to lead to some changes and improvements and stronger linkages with the cultural diversity and biological diversity in Clinton Park. So really amazing job, everyone. Nice work.
And Adrian, how much time do we have for a few more questions? I didn't get do we have a couple minutes still?
Yes, we have about 4 minutes left.
Okay, great. Are there any other folks who'd like to jump in with a question or a comment, including the judges or the broader class?
This is Cassie with Conservation X Labs. I was just wondering, I mean, this was a really beautiful presentation. I was wondering if you had a chance to show this to any of the community members and people who might visit the park and what their response was, or is that still pending?
I can jump in on this because I think for us, we had a really unique situation where we couldn't directly talk with the merchants, but we were able to talk with a park representative from Tribe, which is a Oakland nonprofit that's focusing on building like community. I think especially in like these urban spaces. And Cirilio, who was really great, able to speak with me and Zoe in our physical park visit. I think he really loved how at the base of it, from more of like a community perspective, was really emphasizing kind of like the beautification of a park, because I think as soon as we mentioned like words of like conservation and biodiversity, the first feedback was like, whoa, you need to, I think, kind of break it down a little bit for this community, because sometimes like conservation might not be as much of a priority for some of these communities, given that we may have different immigrant populations, different socioeconomic relations with the surrounding community. So he found that it was a great stepping stone, at least to bringing like that awareness through a first like aesthetic beautification type of solution, rather than something that was very I think in his words, like more invasive and kind of forceful conservation.
No, that's great.
I can also add in another part. We, with the Oakland Vietnamese Chamber of Commerce, there was Jennifer Tran, and we talked to Tommy about it, about our ideas about lights, and he responded that Jennifer was actually in the process of getting lights already at Clinton Park. So there's a lot of positive feedback with that component of our prototype.
No, that's great. I mean, I love that you like focused on an experience, let the experience lead, and then have the educational components kind of follow. So yeah, it was really nice.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. That was a great presentation. And since we have a little extra time, we're gonna try to just move on since we got
Akash, I just want to say one thing real quick. Mm-hmm. We just had a talk with the founders of Pokemon Go, and this kind of stuff. Yeah, I should have told you before this, but this kind of stuff is going to mean a lot, not just locally, but nationally, and soon. So great job, and look forward to working with you all in the future, because this is only the beginning. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's the first time I'm hearing about Pokemon Go. Thanks, Tommy.
I always got some surprise for you, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. Sam, you have a hand up. Last minute question. Go ahead.
I do. I'm curious, given that there's not a traditional revenue model here, if you guys have thought about how you might measure the impact. And this really is kind of a question for everyone, because obviously impact investing is a big thing right now, and just kind of thinking through how you might be able to demonstrate impact, to be able to generate private funds from the ESG space.
I can try to address your question a little bit. I think impact is something we definitely consider during our ideation and prototyping phase. We looked at a lot of existing literature and kind of how they were looking at measuring impact on human-nature connections and environmental attitudes and behaviors. And there's still definitely a big gap in trying to assess this. A lot of this involves kind of extensive participant surveys, surveying a lot of different types of green space. And that's something that we could definitely look into if we were to continue to like prototype.
Cool. Appreciate that. Yeah, building a theory of change can be hard. A lot of work.
All right, that was great. So I think we're going to move on. Thank you, Team 1. Now, Team 5 is next. And if you guys are ready, feel free to start sharing your screen.
Okay, hello everybody. We are Team CalSound, and we formed out of a partnership between the Conservation and Technology track of the Fung Fellowship, as well as the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So before we get started, I just want to take a little bit of time to introduce our team members as well as our individual roles on the project. So we have Dee Dee, Justin, and Audrey, who worked on the literature review. We have Lena, Edgar, and Anmol, who led our tech part of the project. And then finally, Sindhu, Cho, and I worked on the designs. So in our presentation, we will quickly summarize the scope of our problem and discuss our mission. Then we will move on to presenting the prototype as well as all the steps that we took to get there. And then finally, we will discuss the risks and the next steps of our project. So first, we will delve into some background about soundscapes. Soundscapes consist of biological, anthropogenic, and geological sounds. Biological sounds are created by marine organisms, and that includes whales, crustaceans, and fish. Anthropogenic sounds are man-made and include sounds produced by seal guns, vessels, oil drilling sites, or offshore wind turbines, and many more. And then finally, geological sounds include non-biological sounds such as wind, rain, thunder, and earthquakes. So in order to really understand the impact of ocean noise, on the next slide, it is crucial to establish 1, the baseline conditions of natural soundscapes, 2, understand the impact that man-made noises have on animals as well as their behavior, and 3, quantify how soundscapes are changing over time. And while soundscapes are widely used in terrestrial ecosystems, they are not as widely employed in marine ecosystems. And for this reason, marine resource managers need a centralized source of soundscape information in order to make well-informed decisions. So this is where we come in and how we formed our How Might We question. How might we help marine resource managers, researchers, policymakers, and the general public see the impacts of noise pollution in the ocean and provide a clear, holistic way of synthesizing information and visualizing ocean soundscapes? I'll now pass it on to Audrey, who will talk about our steps, our prototyping steps.
Here we have a timeline of the steps we took throughout our project process. We started as a full team researching the field of soundscapes, working on an initial draft of the literature review, and performing interviews. From there, we then split into sub-teams working in parallel to complete the literature review and develop a Figma prototype, which then evolved into our current website. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our first step was to start with research, which we used as an opportunity to better inform ourselves of the complexities of soundscape. We divided 30 academic papers from the categories listed on the slide among ourselves so that we each read through before presenting our paper's main takeaways and relevance to our project. From there, the summaries of each paper were combined to create our 31-page literature review. Our paper's main value stems from the fact that it provides a comprehensive review of the soundscapes and its applications, both of which are novel ideas. Our paper also has a section in which we discuss how the technology in this field, including our prototype, is evolving and can better serve marine resource managers and other stakeholders. In addition to providing our literature review to NOAA to be shared with their stakeholders, we've included it on our website so that we can increase the accessibility of soundscape knowledge to all users. Next, we split into pairs to interview 12 marine resource managers, policymakers, researchers, and technology experts to discuss how soundscapes fit into their line of work. After each team completed their interviews and shared what they learned, we formed 3 main takeaways. Our first takeaway is that research is not centralized, focusing more on the individual species rather than the entire ecosystem. This then causes policy, which is built off of research, to only focus on the individual species. Our second takeaway is that there are many different metrics to consider when understanding the impact of sound, such as broadband and third octave levels. Additionally, it is important to acknowledge temporal and spatial scales, since they can greatly affect the data collected and the metrics produced. Utilizing all of these factors allows scientists to identify how soundscape levels differ from what is deemed normal. Our third takeaway is that it is vital to consider all the layers within a soundscape, including the biological, geological, and anthropogenic sounds. These layers provide the context needed to understand how human and biological activities intersect and impact the local ecosystem. So from what we learned during our interviews, we were able to develop a stakeholder analysis which mapped out how to best serve our users as well as how stakeholders interact. First, researchers communicate both with marine resource managers and policymakers to share the data they've collected. From there, marine resource managers utilize the data to develop their plans, while policymakers use that data to establish regulations to protect the environment. Our team serves as the middleman in the data sharing process. By taking the data collected by researchers and producing a comprehensive visualization of that data, we provide the opportunity to marine resource managers and policymakers to understand the concept of the data in the ecosystem. This increases the efficiency of data analysis and application, since many organizations do not have the capacity to analyze the data they receive from the researchers. And now I'm going to hand it off to Anmol so that he can introduce our prototype through our user story.
The best way to really understand our prototype is through actually working through some of the features in the form of a user story. And so if you'd like to follow along, one of my teammates will post a link to our website in the chat, so you can do that. But the setting is that pretend you are a manager at the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, also known as BOEM, and you're responsible for planning and monitoring the development of offshore wind farms on the coast of California. Now, in order to decide where you should build these wind farms, and also if you should build these wind farms, you need to know two things. First, you need to be able to understand the baseline sound levels of the areas where you're looking to develop. And then also, you need to be able to predict the impact of your development on the species in the area, and make sure you're not violating any policy requirements, and also not adversely harming the biology in that geography. And so from here, the user would go to the map on our website. And here they'll see a lot of several buoys. And so all the sound data was collected when NOAA in 2018 put microphones in the ocean attached to drifting buoys and recorded audio. And so if we hover over one of the lines that these buoys traced out over time, we can look at what's called the broadband metric. And so the broadband metric essentially tells us how much sound energy is present at that buoy's location at a particular amount of time. And you can see that across this entire period, this buoy records a fairly consistent 100 decibels of noise. Even if we aggregate this by day, we see this line to actually smooth out a little bit more. And it's definitely around 100 decibels every single day. And one reason for this might be is that if we talk on the shipping routes, we can actually see that this buoy travels across some shipping lanes, which you can see as dark blue stripes on this heat map here. Now, 100 decibels is fairly high. It's actually very close to the range where some species have been found to demonstrate avoidance behavior, meaning when things get too loud, they start to avoid those areas. And so any additional development might be potentially risky in increasing the likelihood of causing avoidance behaviors. But suppose you wanted to double down and continue investigating whether or not your wind farms would actually truly have an impact. Now you can look at more contextual information through the biology. And so one thing you could do is turn on the detections and see what kind of species were actually detected in the recordings from this area. And so you see if I turn on a couple of detections, that this buoy within the day of August 30th of 2018 detected Cuvier's beaked whale several times. And so Cuvier's beaked whale is a marine mammal, and so it's protected underneath the Marine Mammal Protection Act, just like all marine mammals are. And so that's something important to consider when also thinking about whether or not you want to develop. If we want to get an even better understanding of what species are in the area, we can also turn on the habitat density maps. And so if we toggle on the habitat density maps, you see they appear as these red heat maps. And in particular, we see that the short-beaked common dolphin is very prominent in the area where this buoy is located. Now, the short-beaked common dolphin is also a marine mammal, and so protected under the same act as Cuvier's beaked whale. But neither of these species is endangered, and so in terms of development, things are looking better for us. However, we should also make sure that in different frequency ranges, we're not going to be exceeding policy limits. So for that, we can look at what are called third octave levels. Third octave levels essentially divide up the frequency range into different bands. And the actual metric itself is how much sound energy is present within that band. And so we see that in the lower frequency ranges, we have around 90 decibels of noise at maximum. Whereas once we get to the higher frequency ranges, around 20 kilohertz, we have around 75 decibels of noise. So now is the time where you can go to your policy handbook and understand what is the maximum noise threshold at each third octave level band, and make sure that the development of your wind farms won't introduce additional noise that will cause you to exceed these thresholds. You can also make sure that you don't cause any audio masking for these species, because beaked whales as well as dolphins communicate and make noise in very specific ranges for their behaviors. And so if there's too much noise at a particular frequency range, you can actually mask their communication and disrupt that. And so that's something you don't want to do as a resource manager. So after looking at all this data and synthesizing both the contextual information from the biology and the geography, as well as the the anthropophony that's coming out from the shipping noise, now you can kind of make a more general conclusion that if you were to develop a wind farm in this area where this buoy is located, has been traveling, then it's going to be potentially very risky. And so you might want to look elsewhere. So there's a lot of other features on the website that unfortunately we can't cover in such a short amount of time, but I encourage you to play around with them more and also click around on other tabs of our site. One thing to note is that on the resources page, you'll find our entire literature review, which you can read through to learn even more about soundscapes. But with that, I'd love to pass it off to Lena, where she can talk about some of the risks as well as the next steps that we'll be taking.
So for our next steps, our amazing literature review team submitted an abstract for an ocean conference in December. And if we're chosen, we're hoping to attend virtually to spark conversation around our visualization tool. Of course, we also have a lot of other features in mind, and we want our next big feature to be for everyday people. We want somebody like you or me to have a walkthrough that pops up on their first visit, explaining the vast tool set that CalSound provides, as well as some way to define soundscape jargon throughout the website. Our next feature would be for researchers to be able to add data to the map or request for data to be added in order to create a sense of unity and collaboration within soundscape research. Some of us will be staying on and continuing to work on these features more because once researchers can upload their own data, the site will be self-sufficient. Now, I want to thank Anne and Noah for giving us so much of your time and resources. Thank you to the Fung Fellowship, both instructors and students, for such an amazing year. And lastly, thank you all for listening to and about CalSound. We would love to take any questions.
Well done. We'll start with Anne. Anne is with us today. So Anne, do you have any questions or commentary you'd like to share with the group?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is really wonderful. It's great to see how far you've come. The web tool is really beautiful, and it's fun and it's user friendly. So I've been playing with it and I really enjoy it. So that's awesome. And I'm really happy to see how you have incorporated the context of these soundscape measurements, because you've pulled that from your interviews and in all of my research. It's something that is consistently really important, whether we're talking about automatic classification of signals or animal behavior. Context is so important. So I really, really appreciate how you incorporated the shipping lanes or other human activity. Or that's a great, those layers are really valuable. I'm going to be really curious to see how we can continue to add data to this. I know that it's already, there's so much potential, and I'd love to give this a life beyond this semester. Yeah, we have a lot more data that we could add, and I'd love to visualize it, see the different ways that we could visualize that as well. What else? I think that's all I really have to say right now. I wanted to have a couple minutes. I also invited some of my other colleagues who are acoustic researchers at NOAA, Shannon Rankin and Corey Weaver, I think, are in the audience. Do either of you have anything you want to add as feedback on this?
Yeah, this is Shannon Rankin. I'll speak up for a minute. This is great. It's super exciting. It's one of these things where, when we see how much you can do in so little time, it makes us really, really excited, and we wish we could bottle you up for a year. We could conquer the world. So it's very exciting. I love it. And I love the way the potential is. I also really appreciate how you presented it as a user example. Let me pretend you are someone at BOEM. I love that presentation also because that is exactly what we're kind of looking for. Us as researchers, we create products for these managers, but there is this gap in between what we give them and what they need to do with it. And they can't be professionals in every topic. So these kinds of tools are incredibly valuable. Not only are we going to share them with our stakeholders, but I'm going to be sharing this as an example with this other team I've been working on in a much larger scale of how do you bring researchers, close the gap between the research and the conservation management. And so they will be very excited to see this as well. And so good job. I love it. And, of course, I'm really excited to see how we can bring in more of our data. As somebody made a comment that the wind programs are offshore and this data was primarily offshore. And we're only now starting to collect data near shore. So it would be really great to be able to zoom in these areas of importance to them. So excited for all of it. And thank you.
Sam has got his hand raised. Go ahead, Sam.
I think I may have still had it raised from last time, but I do actually have a question. Have you thought on potential markets outside of NOAA and government contracts, such as some of the deep ocean mining, oil, and other energy companies? I was even thinking maybe whale watching groups as well as a resource to help them identify proper, just kind of thinking out there beyond kind of what those use cases might be beyond this. Yeah, curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I can chime in on that one. I do want to acknowledge that I think when looking at the broader picture of stakeholders, there is a business model in almost any situation. You can make the argument that yes, you could monetize it and be profit driven in that sense. But I think for us, really our focus was within the conservation space. So working with the stakeholders that are most relevant, being researchers, policymakers, and really using those interviews that we captured and having that voice show in the work we're doing. So I think in response, while the profits can be realized, I think with an emphasis in conservation, looking at sort of what are the first steps we can take in the research space and then working from that starting point.
Gotcha. So you're mainly focused then on, if you're going to move this forward, on government grants and contracts? Or how are you planning on funding your ongoing work?
Yes, so that is something that's worth exploring and considering those different options. But in the meantime, it would be something that would likely be funded by grants, nonprofit work, that space.
Cool. Thanks for that.
I could also chime in and say that, some of the industry has a responsibility to mitigate their activities. And so there could be direct funding from the industries themselves.
Yeah, I've got a question. So first of all, shout out to the folks. I mean, you've almost created two separate deliverables here that are of equal quality. I mean, the overview and it's the lit review plus the map is just, it's a lot. So well done. Second of all, I have a question about buoys and looking at the map currently. And I was actually reading your lit review just right now to like understand a little bit more about buoys because obviously, and I learned, okay, there's these drifting buoys. Are there fixed buoys? Is that a thing that exists in the ocean? I know nothing about this because I can imagine a fixed buoy also being really valuable in terms of the data it produces in at a single point consistently over time.
Yeah, I can answer this question. So there is like buoys mounted to the bottom of the ocean, but there are certain some limitations to it, such as the ocean water can only be certain depths. If it's too deep, then it would have a lot of trouble like putting it there and maintaining it at the depths. And also the drifting buoy is really sort of like a middle ground of all the marine soundscape collecting data method we have right now, because actually the buoy doesn't drift that fast. So relatively it's in the similar region when you are collecting the sound, but it's also migrating within a range that you allow it to migrate. So it's not fixed only at one point. So it will be more flexible and cover a larger distance than if you put a hydrophone that is fixed at one point. but you are right. There's definitely trade-off between how large an area you can cover and the time you can record at a certain point.
Thank you. And last question: Who deploys and manages these buoys? And are there pushes or opportunities to deploy more over shorter intervals to get more fine-tuned, finely grained data?
So the data on this website is from the NOAA CCES 2018 survey. That's the California Current Ecosystem Survey. And this was provided to us by Anne, which we're super thankful for. But other things that we learned from our interviews were that the way that sound data or data in general about the ocean is collected from a resource management perspective is typically on a needs basis. And so if for example BOEM wants to understand whether or not they should develop something, they'll commission a study and then use that data. And then later on, they will commission another study to discover the impacts of it later. So there's not necessarily continuous monitoring or like one central source of where this data is coming from, or like who's placing these buoys in the ocean.
Okay, got it. All right, we have 1 minute left, and Tyus has a short question, or I'm assuming a short question, but go ahead, Tyus. You have the floor.
Yeah, it was just brief. I just want to say the mapping in this is immaculate. Great job. Like my background is in spatial ecology, so I was just curious, just if you can clarify for me, because I'm trying to figure out in my head the data that you guys utilized in order to create these heat maps and all of the indices that you guys are using. How are you guys considering the spatial and habitat corridors of what these marine mammals are navigating through? And if you have considered pre-existing versus the modern spatial extents of what they're navigating through, because you might have a heat map of like what the density of these populations are located in, but that doesn't mean that necessarily where they're going to be in terms of migratory or breeding grounds, what they're moving through without their habitat. So I was just curious, like how you guys have considered that, because that's a kind of a caveat with like spatial ecology. It's like super important to consider, because if you guys already figured it out, I'd love to know, because I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so without going too much into how things work for the ships in general, this is actually aggregated by us, and so month by month it'll change. For the species, we actually don't have that month by month or even more regular intervals, because the way that these densities were computed were from models that were using survey data. One of them was from 1991 to 2018. The other one is from 2019 specifically. But if we have models if we have a model for every month or every time interval that we want to display on the site, then the slider essentially takes care of updating the heat map as you scrub over time. And so that can capture some of those migratory patterns as well as what the actual corridors are. And then in terms of like discrete locations of animals, that's where the detections come in. And so new models for actually figuring out what animals making a particular noise that's recorded by the buoy, and doing that in a timely fashion, that will be important for actually understanding concrete points of where these animals are.
That's awesome. That's brilliant. That's what I was just trying to figure out. I was like trying to figure out the raw scale of like where your data was. If you guys were like specifically getting data from individual tagging efforts and mark and recapture, or if like it was just survey data and then you're calculating density based on per square kilometer. So I was just curious, like you answered my question. I was just curious. I was wondering, I was like, are they tagging these animals? Is that where the data is coming from? Because that would give you more fine scale understanding. But great job, guys. This is so cool. This is awesome.
Actually, to add on to Anmol's point, the page that he's showing right now gives an explanation of the data and the organization that it's from, as well as how they collected it and all of their discussion and research under that.
Is that in the link that you guys put in the chat too?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I'll go through it in my own time. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're at time. Thank you, Tyus.
Yes.
And thank you, team. That was wonderful. You guys did a great job. And I just, again, shout out to both the technical team that that worked on the map, as well as the lit review team. I know that there was cross collaboration there as well, but good job, guys. We're going to take a 5-minute break here again, another body break. So it's 5:50. We'll come back at 5:55, and we'll have our last two teams present. Okay, we're back. As we wait for people to trickle back, let's have Team 6 get prepped and ready. Okay, go ahead and start as you guys are ready.
Yeah, just real quick, Nikita, there's a bar on the bottom that I believe is showing the downloads. Yeah. Okay, well, right before starting, can everybody bring out their phones as you might need them later on in the presentation? So, well, hello, everyone. We are the Shark Seekers, the Design Challenge team composed of me, myself, Mateo, Nikita, Chris, Brian, Ellen, Elliot, Sashin, and Juliana. A key part of our challenge, as it's in our name, is sharks. So why are sharks so important? Well, right now we have over 500 species of sharks, which have lived in our oceans for over 400 million years. As either apex predators or part of the cleanup crew, sharks are crucial to the ecosystem. They cycle our nutrients, balance our food chain, and serve an integral role in the economy of our fisheries. Yet every year, as many as 100 million sharks are killed, and populations have declined by over 90% due to overfishing, climate change, and habitat destruction. Yet hope is not lost. As organizations such as our partners, the Shark Stewards are here to help. The Shark Stewards mission is to restore ocean health by saving sharks from overfishing and protecting critical marine habitats through the establishment of shark sanctuaries. They apply education and science-sourced advocacy for shark fin trade bans, the strengthening of fisheries policy, the creation of marine protected areas, and the reduction of ocean plastic pollution. We had the honor of working with David McGuire, founder and director of the Shark Stewards, and notably a Cal alumni as well. Yet the Shark Stewards are running into some challenges. To advocate for policy change, you need data. Yet there is no central database for shark sightings and catches in California. Right now, staff, interns, and volunteers are mining various data sources and scouring the web for California shark sightings, a very labor-intensive and time-consuming process. The Shark Stewards asked us, is there a better way to mine these data sources online and coalesce them? Another challenge is that people are fearful of sharks, and there's a lack of education on their importance. So once again, they asked, is there an easier way to educate the public on the benefits of sharks to the ecosystem and the dangers of shark catch? Our solution will be used to launch SharkWatch, an initiative to protect public health and West Coast sharks. SharkWatch will coalesce shark sightings catch data in an easy to use and easy to understand database. It'll incorporate a warning system to warn swimmers and surfers of sharks nearby and expand public knowledge of sharks and the benefits they bring. Furthermore, our solution will be used to create policy briefs to advocate for the protection of California sharks.
So now moving on to the next portion of our presentation, we'd like to discuss our background research, which helped us through our ideation process. Much of our background research was less centered on finding shark sighting information, but rather researching current tools that are being used to help gather such data. A reality check for us through our research process, searching for different tools, was that we do not have unlimited resources. In the beginning, we were looking into gathering satellite data, using sound waves, and even drones to help us gather more info. But through this, we realized that not only is it not feasible with the resources at our disposal, but it also lacked community involvement that we believe was necessary to educate the public on the necessities of sharks in our ecosystem, all of which have helped shape our finalized ideas that you see here today. We went in with the intent of trying to find new ways to gather data, with one main goal being able to supplement Shark Steward with information they can use when creating policy briefs, in order to send to legislative officials when trying to create protected areas and bring awareness of the issue of overfishing. So all of this has led to our restructured How Might We? How might we create and implement new ways to coalesce data sources on shark catch? How can these data and proposed tools better educate the public about sharks and the important necessary roles they play in the marine ecosystem? After finalizing our research, we came up with 3 main areas of focus for our project that touch on all aspects of the issue we are hoping to solve. Citizen science. With the lack of community involvement, we thought it'd be best to tackle the problem directly at its source. Through engaging with citizen science, we can collaborate with the general public, gaining knowledge from them while also making them more aware of the issue at hand. Through education, we can target fishermen and educate them on the dangers of overfishing, seeing as though most data on shark encounters comes from this population. And lastly, through the creation of a social media web scraper tool that uses an algorithm to mine shark data from different social media platforms, we're hoping Shark Stewards can use this in the near future. So what are our solutions? The first is citizen science. Through the creation of a QR code and a web-based platform, we are able to gather data from the public in real time, a walkthrough of which you will see shortly. After creating our prototype, our next step was to generate interest in it by contacting businesses and other platforms near the piers and other bodies of water. Currently, we've been able to generate interest from lifeguard towers, who got to look at a version of our Figma prototype and gave us good ideas on how to improve shark sighting information, and have agreed to put our QR codes up on their buildings. By educating employees of these businesses on our goal, as well as allowing them to scan the code themselves and input data, we hope we can spread the knowledge to the general public. With data incoming from people in real time, we needed to find a way to link it to Shark Steward's website so they can constantly collect this new information and put it to good use. The data is not only used to educate the public and keep them engaged with our issue, but we're hoping that the influx of information can be used to create policy briefs in the near future. One important thing to mention is where we drew inspiration from our first product. Merlin Bird ID is a unique app that allows users to scan pictures of birds, input some geographical and contextual information, and from that, it will show you the potential bird you saw. It is important to note that scientists have made great use of the data from this app for ornithology research. In fact, there have been over 900 million data points collected and used by researchers, and it's our hope that our web-based platform can be used in a similar way. So before going through our first walkthrough, we'd love it if you could all pull out your phone, scan our QR code, which will take you to our Figma prototype and will allow you to follow along with us on our user journey. For most questions, please click next to get to the next page, as you don't have to input all the information. So the scene is set for Nikita as she is walking down near Fisherman's Wharf.
Visiting Fisherman's Wharf, I noticed a QR code on the side of the pier. As an avid QR code scanner, I whipped out my phone to see just what shark seekers had to say. I saw a fisher boat recently come into dock with some catch on the boat and wanted to report what I saw. After filling in some basic info to assist the research efforts of Shark Stewards nonprofit. Scrolling through photos, I can see what different common California sharks look like in the water and on land as catch. I selected a great white shark because it looked the most similar and added some more unique details I saw regarding the shark, along with attaching a photo. After scrolling through various California coastal sharks, I realized I didn't know much about the sharks native to this area. So I continued to take a knowledge quiz. I realized I'd never seen a shark in the ocean, but wanted to continue to learn more. 5 questions later, I learned a bit more about sharks, just enough to pique my curiosity. And finally, for my little cousin who loves to play with QR codes, there's something for her. She gets to figure out what type of shark she would be in the ocean using her personality. In the past, Shark Stewards volunteers would manually search for Instagram posts, Twitter, Facebook, and fishing forums to find details about shark catch pictures. When looking for ways to address this problem, we wanted to implement a more technological solution, along with the citizen science program previously explained. Our idea was to collect a data set of online postings from Twitter, where many fishers are known to boast about their catch. However, our team was not the most code savvy. With the help of Dan, we reached out to the Bay Area Teen Science Group, looking for a high school student that was an avid coder to assist us in implementing a web scraper. In collaboration with him, I worked to highlight our goals and constraints in creating this web scraper. We addressed specific hashtags, time period, and a platform that he would work on the bot for. We created a web scraper for Twitter that would look through certain hashtags that may correlate to relevant tweets that depict details of shark catch. So in the next video, I kind of asked him to explain because he knows most about his code, but we're specifically looking through a shark catch hashtag.
Hey, I hope you're doing well. My name is Marth, and this is my web scraper I made for the Twitter sharks, shark catches on Twitter. Basically, it's this Python file. It uses Selenium and Beautiful Soup to basically open a fake version of Google Chrome, which I'll be showing you right here. And it collects different parts of tweets, such as their user, the user's handle or username, and then it sorts these out into links. To basically run the script that opens up. It's basically going to go to the hashtag on Twitter for shark catches. It's going to automatically scroll down once it finishes refreshing. It's going to automatically scroll down to get all the newest tweets, and then it's going to go to each and every tweet and basically scrape the tweets for their username, user handle. And it does this for all of them. And as you can see from this terminal output, I'm getting their username and the user's actual name, so like the handle and the username. But basically after that, it gets the links of every single tweet. So like this link over here, this URL, and then that's what's going here basically.
So going on to talking about our future plans. Our idea of implementing the QR code in the future is to partner with small businesses that are ocean focused. Three specific businesses that we were looking at were Sea Trek, which is an outdoor ocean adventure company located locally in the Bay Area, Bamboo Reef Scuba, which is a local scuba and dive shop, as well as Newport Landing Whale Watching, which is another whale watching company down in Newport Beach. So in order to spread our reach a little bit further. From our experience, reaching out to local businesses is difficult and takes more time than we had for this project timeline. In the future, we plan to spend more time creating these relationships in order to further our data aggregation. In order to make sure things are working smoothly, we plan to run a trial of placing the QR code in these businesses to see the pitfalls and successes of collecting data through a citizen science program. This is important in order to assess the drawbacks of our solution, which might include a lack of engagement for this web-based platform, seeing as our solution is heavily reliant on voluntary engagement. After our trial, we will take the feedback and effectiveness of our QR code, make modifications, and repeat the process again. Our project partner is currently working on an app platform, and we wanted to create a wireframe that we could hand off to Shark stewards on their mission to create to encourage more community involvement.
Hey, I hope you're doing well. My name is Smart, and
as for our web scraper, we are still working through minor changes, such as parsing through more hashtags to find relevant posts on Twitter. We are also looking to develop a natural language processing component of the web scraper in order to pull more relevant information from the posts themselves, such as date, time, location. Furthermore, we want to create a larger data set to integrate the data collected from the QR code and the data collected from the web scraper, hoping that Shark stewards can gather enough data in order to use for their policy briefings. At the moment, Shark stewards is currently working on creating a web scraper for Instagram posts with relevant hashtags, and we want to deliver the bot that we're working on in order to widen their social media access. Sharks serve as a key indicator of ocean's health, and in aggregating this data, we are looking to keep both sharks and people that enjoy the ocean safe. Thank you for listening to our solution, and we're open to answer any questions.
Well, to start, let's invite David McGuire to the conversation. David, are you with us?
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Thank you. Well, first off, I want to thank Dan and you and the Fung Challenge team, and the students were really great to work with. I really enjoyed it, and it's great to be connected to Cal after quite a few years since I used to work there. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was clear, but what we're actually getting at with the help of the students is looking at recreational catch or sports catch and release of sharks, particularly large sharks. There is some data through Fish and Wildlife on commercial catch because it's a legal requirement that they report, but there is no legal requirement of reporting for recreational catch. So we've actually seen thousands of observations of large sharks, including endangered species, being attracted, caught, and captured, and sometimes killed near public beaches. So this is part of not only a purely scientific project, interest just in data, but also sociological, has a sociological interest, human behavior element, which actually increased during COVID. There was more fishing, but also public safety, because a lot of these fishermen are targeting large sharks like great white sharks near beaches where people are surfing, children are swimming. So I think it has so many exciting dimensions, and the whole goal is to have this to be an open source so that other people could use it, which is, I'm really excited about the QR code, sharing that around, putting in a lifeguard stations, that's amazing, public safety, but also just businesses so that people can learn. So having that educational dimension is really important when it comes to animals that people misunderstand, particularly sharks or large predators. So great job, team. I'm really impressed. And really fun to see the presentation. All of you, actually, all the presentations are really remarkable.
Thank you, David. I'm going to open it up to the rest of the class, including our judges and the teaching team, to ask any questions or have any commentary.
Quick question. A wonderful job, by the way. Just great work. Really impressed with your prototype and your presentation. I know that there have been some legal challenges to web scrapers. Did you get into that at all? And if so, what were your decisions?
We didn't exactly get into that because the only posts that I had the high school coder look at were public posts. But we didn't do too much research into that. But again, that would be something going further we would look at.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for acknowledging it.
I had okay, so it's a two-part question. First question is actually for Andy, if Andy was still with us. Andy, I know that you left us because you're going to be doing work around DNA sequencing of wastewater from watersheds. Is that, you're still doing that, Andy, or am I getting the general gist of what you do, right?
Kind of, yeah, around that. That's
Okay.
the larger goal, but yeah.
Okay, could there be, I mean, thinking about it, just another data set or another way of getting data about concentration of certain animals or populations of animals, could that also be, could you like pull a sample of water, for example, ocean water, and be able to get like a relative like distribution of, and sequence it, for whatever DNA matter is in it, and then get a relative distribution of variety of species concentrated in that like parcel of water that you just pulled?
Yeah, so there's a lot of research, and it's an expanding field of environmental DNA, specifically in biodiversity monitoring, both in marine systems, but also, freshwater and anywhere really that you think that animal might leave DNA in the environment. And so there's been a lot of work to just build out the technology for not only just the presence and absence of those species, but actually inferring potential for abundance of those species. So how much of that species might be there. But yeah, I think that there's some real opportunity to leverage environmental sources of DNA to assess, like, a lot of these species that we care about are really elusive in nature, and it's really hard to see them. And so if they're leaving something, a little trail for us to find them, then it could be the smoking gun to saying, here's evidence that we know this endangered species is in the area. We should be looking out for potential sightings of it. I think that one of the things I was really interested about this is, like, yes, it's really cool about sharks, but there's a lot of animals that are captured for recreational purposes that are not just sharks, but fish that are endangered, and a lot of terrestrial animals. And I think that there could be really like sort of parallels to this platform for other types of species that we don't track and we don't know that impact. I mean, I worked on amphibians, and one of the main things that we worry about is the amphibian pet trade, and how some of these amphibians getting out into the wild that, we have no data on assessing that. So this would be really, really interesting to pair that with.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. And I guess, Andy, great commentary, by the way. The second part of the question is can you guys foresee your platform incorporating other either more current or novel forms of data in the form of like these, what Andy's talking about, including other animals and other species that are endangered? That's my question.
I can go ahead and answer it then. Yeah, for sure. I don't see how that would be really an issue in integrating, especially in Shark Stewart's final goal of incorporating Shark Watch and having a data hub where they would coalesce all these sources. It's easy to use, easy to understand. Definitely more data is definitely better. The only thing that's slightly different about the DNA part is in this challenge, we're looking at instances where sharks interact with human beings and shark catch. So you wouldn't be able to really read that from pure DNA, but it would definitely be helpful to see the density of sharks and other species that live in the area. But once again, focusing on human interaction with sharks as well as shark catch, that's something that we really need citizen science for, and thus the QR code.
Thank you. We have just under 4 minutes left for questions or commentary. If there's anybody else who'd like to share or ask a question, please feel free. Oh, this is cool. David, can you actually talk about that? If you don't mind, we have a couple extra minutes. Can you tell us about this? Collecting eDNA on white sharks at the Faroe Islands with the mini ROV?
Yeah, well, eDNA is as Andy said, well, it's been around for several years, but it's a great tool to collect data on species, as Andy said, that are evasive, elusive, or sometimes outright impossible to find, or even dangerous if it's a white shark. And sharks in particular are hard to get close enough to get a biopsy, get a sample, or retrieve it if you get it. So yeah, there's a postdoc at Stanford and Barbara Bloch's lab, and we have an ROV that was donated by a company called SOFAR in San Francisco. They were in Berkeley, and they also make a smart buoy system that collects meteorological data that is not attached. And it's a really cool startup company, but they gave us this mini ROV. It's about this big, and it has these little crucibles, and we're able to see with live feed on the camera. And you know, technically you don't need to see the shark, but the closer you get, the higher the concentration, whether it's feces, urine, or skin. And so it's expanded the knowledge base by species too, because you can actually, I mean, by individual, sorry, not just by species, but by individual. So that does give you an idea of how many sharks might be in a location at one time. Pretty cool.
Yeah, really cool. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I think we'll cap it at there. Thanks, David, and thank you, Team 6. That was a great presentation, a great project overall. Last but not least, we have Team 2 in our final presentation of the day, and then we'll have recognitions, awards, and final words at the end before we all conclude the night. So Team 2, go ahead.
Thank you, Akash. Good evening, everyone. We are Team Telephants, and we have been working with the partner organization Center for Wildlife Studies in India. And here is our wonderful team of fellows. Next slide, please. And here is our story. First, we will walk you through the user journey of an impacted farmer. Then we will go over our accomplishments with data collection. And finally, we are excited to show you our innovative prototype. So let's take a look at the problem we have at hand.
ರಾತ್ರಿ ಕಾಲೆಲ್ಲ ದಿನವಿಡೀ ನಿದ್ದೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಶ್ರಮ, ಆಯಾಸ, ನಿಂತ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ ಬುದ್ಧಿ ಇದಾಗತ್ತ ಅಂತಾರ. ಯಾವ ಟೈಮ್ ಬರ್ತಾವ ಯಾವ ಟೈಮ್ ಹೋಗ್ತಾವ ಎರಡೂ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲ್ಲ. ನಮಗೂ ಪ್ರಾಣ ಭಯ. ಅದು ಶಕ್ತಿಂತ ಪ್ರಾಣಿ ಅದು. ಅದು ಒಂದು ಹಸಿದ ವೇಳೆ ಬಂದಾಗ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣ ಬೆಳೆಯನ್ನ ತಿಂದೇ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅದು.
Awesome. Now, meet Farmer Raj, one of many farmers who goes through exactly what we saw in that video. Farmer Raj lives in one of many villages surrounding Bandipur National Park, and he experiences the exhaustion of protecting his crops from elephants at night. Raj and some of his friends have lost their livelihood due to crop and property damage. One of Raj's farmer friends was seriously injured trying to defend his crops from elephants, while another one of Raj's friends witnessed a forest official being forced to violently confront an elephant near his farmland. While Raj needs to protect his livelihood and feed his family, he also respects wildlife and does not want the elephant to be harmed. Now, Raj is not alone in his struggle. In 2012 alone, there were over 78,000 reports of human-wildlife conflict in India, all of whom received a combined total of ex gratia payments amounting to $5.3 million US, with the majority of payments made for crop and property damage. However, many who experience losses through these events are left uncompensated due to problems with local bureaucracy and laws surrounding the compensation system. Human-wildlife conflict, specifically human-elephant conflict, is prevalent in areas near certain Indian nature reserves, such as our region of focus, Bandipur National Park. In this map, we see that each dot represents a human-wildlife conflict reported by Wild Save, an initiative of our partner organization, CWS, near Bandipur National Park over the course of 4 years. Now, while Center for Wildlife Studies provides assistance with compensation payments, Rainforest Connection is an organization that has been working very closely with CWS to develop a device that uses machine learning through their software Arbimon to identify elephant noises and pinpoint their location in the forest. Now, this brings us to our contributions to solving this problem and our initial how might we question. How might we develop an effective elephant acoustic monitoring and detection system and associated early warning system to reduce human-elephant conflict in agricultural and human-dominated landscapes surrounding India's protected areas?
At the beginning of our prototyping journey, our first objective in helping CWS is to look for databases of Asian elephant sounds in order to train Arbimon's machine learning models. Within a few weeks, we were able to achieve 3 accomplishments. First, we located 3 audio scraping algorithms that parses elephant sounds specific to YouTube and SoundCloud. We learned that there were very few reliable resources from these platforms. Second, we found 2 large trainable, high-fidelity sets of African and Asian elephant sounds. We are proud to say that they are currently being trained on Arbimon. Finally, we established connections between CWS and active researchers who are currently working on collecting and labeling Asian elephant sounds. In the first half of our prototyping journey, we met with Topher White and received a personal tutorial on how to use Arbimon, the machine learning platform. Our fellows James and Mason interviewed Dr. De Silva. We learned that there have been many attempts at designing an early warning system. The issue is not in the science itself, but the lack of support in the implementation of the science. Oftentimes, implementations are presented without further follow-up and support, and so they fail as a result. We want to do better. We also interviewed Dr. Vijay Krishnan. We learned that elephants are extremely good at picking up patterns and determining whether or not these patterns are harmful or harmless. Our fellows Prajan Arushi interviewed Sanjay Mohan. We learned that ex gratia payments cover only up to 50 to 60% of lost livelihood. At the end of the first half of our prototyping journey, we knew it was time to synthesize our research and act on innovation.
And this brings us to our pivot to innovation. So knowing that Rainforest Connection and CWS have been working on detecting the elephant's presence, how can our team work on deterring the elephants in a way that addresses the farmer's dilemma? Firstly, deterring elephants avoids the crop damage and loss of livelihood for farmers, which is a better alternative to after-the-fact financial compensation. We need to establish a deterrent system that can be placed on and near farmers' property to provide them with greater protection and establish trust in that relationship with farmers. We also need to ensure that our deterrent system does not cause harm to farmers or the elephants, which is of highest priority to our team. This brings us to our new how might we question, which is how might we leverage the early detection sensor system to build a passive deterrent system that farmers can rely on at night to protect against elephant conflicts. So in order to solve this new how might we question, we had a few design principles to keep in mind. Firstly, promoting the safe land sharing between people and wildlife, understanding challenges from the outset, drawing on past technologies and building off of them, simplifying our solution to ensure its longevity, and always asking for and understanding the user's perception of wildlife. So this brings us to our solution, which is a solar-powered wind torch, torch meaning flashlight. This mimics the presence of humans at night to scare elephants away. So this is the prototype concept's workflow. The RFCX system detects elephants and alerts our system by Bluetooth. This triggers our solar-powered wind torch, which simulates beams of light to show human activity and scare the elephants away.
We decided to create a device that replicates the motion of a human holding a flashlight in order to reduce elephant habituation by using wind-rotated turbine with a reflective surface. The device would shine a light from the top arm housing the electronics module and reflect the light into a variable pattern at roughly an adult elephant's eye level.
This is the concept for our circuit design, which starts with the solar panel that is used to charge our batteries. These batteries are used to power the Arduino system, which communicates via Bluetooth and then powers the programmable LED light strip. So this is our prototyping process. Initially, we were testing different reflective surfaces to see which would be most effective. Here, we're figuring out which height and angle would be most effective to reach an elephant at eye level, at an adult's eye level, because this is the most common elephant that is found in this conflict area. Here, we're testing out the code to ensure that we can control the light. So here we have a turn on and turn off button so that we can control the light strip. So here we can see it's turning on, and then we can turn it off. We also wanted to make sure that we tested different light combinations to see which one was the brightest. So here we're testing red and blue because previously we tested white and we wanted to see which would be most effective. And here we're making sure that the prototype can be battery powered so that we don't need to have a device on the ground. And here it works very well in powering our light strip. This is our prototype outside when we wanted to test how it would stand. And here we can see it being tested at night. The video quality is a little grainy at night, but we can see that it's really bright, so it's an effective alternative.
Our prototype is designed to be easily manufactured, cheap, and replaceable. Materials like bamboo can replace PVC pipe and will be readily sourceable. The total cost will be approximately 17 United States dollars. Farmer Raj can benefit from our system since it is waterproof, low cost, and doesn't require technical expertise to deploy. The system can connect with additional devices based on landscape requirements. Three of our main concerns include habituation, effectiveness during the day, and reliance on the wind. Since elephants are perceptive, dealing with them habituating to our system after they realize there are no humans present is anticipated as a potential issue. Although daytime conflicts are less frequent, our system is only effective at night, and our prototype's reflective surface requires a breeze to rotate, limiting its effectiveness during still days. Some of our future plans could include adding long-range radio transceivers to our device that could help establish a mesh network with Rainforest Connection's acoustic monitoring in order to provide more redundancy and a larger effective coverage.
We would like to extend our special thanks to all of the people who made this project possible. Firstly, the Fung Institute and the Fung Fellowship, the Conservation and Tech faculty Dan, Akash, and David, and our point of contact with the Center for Wildlife Studies, Anubhav, whose guidance was invaluable in making this project happen, and who was also here since very early his time. We really appreciate his help and support throughout this project, and with all of the people that we were able to discuss and collaborate with to further our understanding. Thank you all for your time and attention, and we would be happy to take any questions and comments now.
Excellent. I think Anubhav is with us today. So Anubhav, feel free to jump in at this point.
Hi, everyone. So I'd just like to say that, it's been an incredibly interesting and, humbling experience watching all of the presentations across all teams. The amount of, effort, thought that's gone into it, and the nuanced product designs that have come out is just been staggering. So congrats, everyone. I can't wait to see some of these products out, open to the public. With the Telephants theme, originally I was quite worried when we pitched the project because we were asking the team to address a very real situation and deal with a species whose vocalizations hadn't been studied in this landscape before, create a technology product, a conservation technology product that was designed to be used by a demographic that was remote, rural, and technologically illiterate. So in that regard, I think they've done an incredible job. And if it wasn't for the pandemic, we would have run a couple of field tests and been able to iterate on some of the product design and really try to narrow down what works in the field. But, the hope is in the next coming months, we actually do get down to that. That's our next phase, is to, as we're working with Rainforest Connection, is to make sure that we can build on some of these prototypes, get them connected, have a couple deployable in the field. And given how simple it is to deploy and low cost, I really think it'll be useful in trying to address and mitigate human-wildlife conflict in this landscape. So incredible job, team, and incredible job, everyone. It's been such a pleasure watching all of this.
Great. Thank you, Anubhav. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching the other presentations. I know it's early your time. I'm going to open it up to the rest of the class, including our judges and the teaching team, to comment or ask any questions at this time.
I really want to thank Anubhav for being here as well. I know what you're going through back there, and for you to take this time and so early in the morning as well is just speaks volumes to what our partners give to this program. So we can't thank you enough. I was just wondering if the team, excellent job. Can you go back to the schematic of your prototype just quickly? That went by kind of quick, and I would love, maybe could you just do one more? Yeah, there we go. That's the one. Yeah. Okay. How is this secured? I mean, could an elephant just push it over and it's over and done with?
I can answer that question. So we didn't really think about the securement as much because this is meant to be more of a long distance deterrent system. So the hope is that the elephant would see this light flashing from at least 10 to 20 meters away, and then that would deter it. But that's definitely something to keep in mind, since right now our system is kind of built upon the idea that it would just kind of stick into the ground and just be there. But as we iterate and further the product design, that's definitely something to keep in mind to keep it more stable and secure, just in case an elephant does come in contact with it.
Okay. Excellent. I hope you can do some real world testing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question in the chat from Abhishek, and essentially he's asking what's keeping the rotating disc from being powered.
I can go ahead and answer that question. So the reason we chose to make the rotating disc wind powered was to increase the randomization of the light. Because when we spoke to Dr. Sridhar, who was one of the professionals that we consulted, he expressed concern that any sort of regularity in the patterns that the elephant notices would cause the elephants to become they would immediately understand within the span of a few weeks, I believe he said, that this was not a real person. That aspect of randomization is something that we can easily achieve through wind. And I think that's why we wanted to stick to having it wind powered rather than it be a fan, and also to cut down energy consumption, as well as just make it an easy setup and replacement. Because I feel like when we add more aspects of like a motorized thing to it to rotate the disc, it does get a little more expensive as well.
No, those are all great. I appreciate the rationale there. I do imagine though, if it was necessary, right, if you needed to like run it on non-windy days or still days, you can also run probably some kind of randomization algorithm to the motor from the Arduino that would randomize the movements of the fan. But yeah, thank you for those answers. Appreciate it. And I think, are there any other questions? There's a lot of comments. You guys got a lot of love in the chat, but
yeah.
Akash,
we have a VIP in the audience who knows a thing or two about elephants, although I believe he's worked mostly with African elephants. But I'd like to give a shout out and an opportunity to comment to Ted Schmidt from Vulcan, and I think fairly soon the Allen Institute for AI. Ted, can you say a few words here?
Yeah, thanks, Dan, and appreciate that introduction. Yeah, we are moving to the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence in a few months. First of all, I want to say this. I mean, this project in particular, near and dear to my heart. I've spent a lot of time and Dan, you're right, in Africa. I haven't had the pleasure, unfortunately, yet of meeting an Asian elephant. So I have to make that happen. But the other thing I want to say is how exciting it is to see you focusing on human-wildlife coexistence. And I like to use the term coexistence rather than conflict, which is a term you often hear. Really, it's been neglected in terms of conservation technology far too long. There's been an understandable focus on anti-poaching and trafficking, but the focus on solutions to address human-wildlife coexistence are desperately needed. These folks their crops get destroyed. I've met villagers in Africa who've said, my niece was killed by an elephant. Those folks are not too excited about having elephants in the environment. I may be, but they're not going to be. So really love that you focused on this problem. Love the cleverness. I couldn't agree more. Elephants are so smart. They figure things out really fast. You have to randomize. You have to try different things. You might even think about attaching different scents. They don't like bees, for instance. You can make buzzing noises, chilies. There are all sorts of deterrents. You might build those in. And then I think it was Dan also mentioned asked about securing. I have seen elephants, I have seen water towers, massive water towers that elephants have pushed over. So they will get in there, they will push these things over. So you do have to protect them. Clever things like putting rocks around, which they don't walk well on big bouldery rocks. You think, oh, I need to build a big fence or something. Actually, big rocks that they can't navigate well can serve that purpose. So that's really important. And by the way, people also, if they find valuable pieces of metal, they may walk off with these things too. So you do need to secure it also from people. So just a fabulous project, and I could comment a lot more, but just love seeing this work. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ted. Ted's been a huge proponent and friend of the conservation track from day one, and advising us sort of behind the scenes. And it was one of his introductions that actually led to this project, although I don't know if everybody in between knows that. But so thank you, Ted, for actually having this project come about through your support. Really, really glad you're here. And I'll turn it back to you, Akash.
Yeah, there was another question in the chat from Yi, and it's about have you guys thought about light pollution and its effects on local animals like birds?
Yes. Go ahead, actually, James. Go.
Okay, so this was actually the aspect I was concerned with when we were first designing this program. So it is a real issue for light pollution, especially in these environments that are next to these natural reserve areas. And like you said, birds are the most affected species. But the way that we try to address that problem was by integrating with the rainforest connection system, which once the algorithm is properly trained, should be able to detect elephants in certain areas. And through triangulation, we plan to only turn on these wind torches only when elephants are in the area, because they are the species that is actually causing the most damage. And we do want to limit that possibility of light pollution's effects on other animals in the environment, whether it be birds or other mammals in the environment.
Thank you, James. Yeah, we have about a minute or two left. There's a hand raised. Oh, Sam, you have a question. Go ahead, Sam.
I do. Just curious, what kind of capital would you be requiring to actually deploy these?
I can take that question. So because the cost isn't too high per unit, it's not the most capital intensive. And another way of us viewing this problem was that the government is responsible for paying a lot of ex gratia payments. But if we can institute a solution where it's more preventative measures that would be a lower capital cost, but also would be more beneficial in the long run, then that would be something that's a lot more beneficial for the area. So a lot of the funds that the government currently has set aside for payments after the fact could be used for implementing this. And in addition, CWS and partners have funding coming from other sources that could be used to implement the solution.
Oh, thank you for that.
All right. Well, I think with that, let's wrap it up. That went a lot faster than the 2 hours and 40 minutes suggests. It started off rocky, but it got way better from there. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to our judges. Thank you to our VIPs, to the teaching team, I guess myself included, and especially the Fung Fellowship administration and staff who've basically been doing all the hard work on the back end to make all this wonderful work happen. We're going to transition now. I'm going to hand over a little bit of this time to Dan as well for some recognitions of the folks who are in the room with us today, the pseudo virtual room. But we will also have formal recognitions from our judges, from our panel of 4 judges. Is it, Dan, it's 3 or 4 judges?
We have 3 judges for awards, and then Andy's going to hand out some special recognition awards as well.
Exactly. So please stick around for that. So Dan, I'm going to let you acknowledge the folks in the room, and then for our judges, for right now is the time when you can be tallying up your scores or however you're doing it, so that we can actually hand out those recognitions by the end. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Akash. Yeah. So before we get to our judges and their final decisions on some of these awards, we do have at least one other person in the room that I really need to point out. Again, another huge supporter of the conservation track and the course, and our partner at the Rosser College of Natural Resources. I'd like to introduce Lynn Hunsinger, Associate Dean of the Rosser College of Natural Resources. Lynn, thank you so much for being here with us. Would you like to say a few words on what you observed and this new programming that is not necessarily run out of CNR, but definitely couldn't happen without you?
Well, I'm going to keep my video off because my back can't take a full day upright and I'm flat on my back. So, but I really enjoyed this whole thing. It was great. It's just, I'm so glad to be, we're so glad at Rouser to be a partner. I mean, so glad you came to us and so glad that you've done this wonderful thing. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and you guys work so hard on these projects and they're so innovative. And thinking about it today, you know, how do you get that beautiful art? How do you do this construction and design? Wow. How do you come up with these clever activities? And then they're so relevant to really important conservation issues. So I'm delighted, and I've enjoyed the whole showcase very, very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Lynn. So glad you're here. All right. Maybe a thumbs up from the judges. Is everybody ready, or do we need more time? Where are you? I'm looking for you here. All right. I think, okay, I see a thumbs up from Tommy. So, and this.
Cassie's ready.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm excited to let you know that we have a friend in the audience. You all know him from the fall semester, and he's agreed to be the judge for Best Conservation Impact Potential. Tommy Sheridan from the Wildlife Conservation Network has been observing your presentations, and I see a smile on his face, so I think he has some words to say and definitely an award to make. So Tommy, take it away.
Cool. Thank you, Dan. Awesome to see you guys again. I saw your presentations in December last, and you blew me away then, and you absolutely blew me away again tonight. So I was very impressed by the slide, just design, all the presentation skill sets from you guys. You were very professional, as always. And yeah, you blew me away again. So thank you for letting me sit in on this, to everyone with the Fung Fellowship. As Dan mentioned, I work with the Wildlife Conservation Network, so he asked me to give the conservation prize tonight. I think you all absolutely deserve a prize in some form tonight for the presentations you gave, but since my focus is on wildlife conservation, although I wanted to give you applause and award for some of the topics that touched on human health or I think cultural knowledge and urban design, all these amazing topics, I am a little biased in my choice tonight with conservation. So for me, the choice was Team 2, the last presentation, elephants, because I'll tell you guys why, because I think all the other presentations were really brilliant at bringing together conservation and technology and providing some form of conservation education or even citizen science and informing a lot of relevant parties, I think, to conservation decision making. So they're absolutely needed. I think all your projects are worthwhile. But I feel like what Telephants did, which was unique, is that they actually provided the intervention directly to solve a conservation issue, which in this case was human-elephant conflict. And so I think you guys took it just that one step ahead to really provide a solution, not just information and information sharing, but really the direct solution. So I just applaud you guys for doing that. I talked to Kriti Karanth from the Center for Wildlife Studies about a week ago, and we were discussing some issues of human wildlife conflict. So absolutely, as Anubhav said, I think your work is incredibly relevant to what's going on there. There's a few ways I think it could improve for sure, but that'll all depend on how it's implemented locally. But you guys did an incredible job, so congratulations and applause to everyone that presented tonight. Thank you so much. Good job.
Yeah, congratulations, team 2, and thank you, Tommy, so much. I know you're on the East Coast there still. Yes, is that correct? Yeah, so late night for you. Appreciate having you back. It's just wonderful. So thank you. And also on the East Coast, and also giving out an award tonight, is Cassie Hoffman from Conservation X Labs. Now, we haven't actually brought them into a design challenge yet, but again, one of our earliest supporters, Conservation X Labs, has been advising us on the side, has been helping us with finding speakers and experts. And so we're just really, really honored tonight to have Casey with us. And she's going to be giving out the award for Best Innovation Potential. So Casey, take it away. Cassie, sorry.
Cass, you're still muted.
The phrase of 2020, yes. Thank you, Sam. So I am from Conservation X Labs, conservation and innovation company based in Washington, D.C. Encourage you to check us out. We run a lot of open innovation competitions around conservation challenges. And I'm sure, I don't know if Ted was going to make a plug, Vulcan did just release a call for conservation technology grants that I'm going to be a part of too. So a great funding opportunity that I encourage you all to look at. It was awesome to be here tonight. And, you know, I've seen a lot of projects go from idea to prototype to and even beyond. And it was so cool to see like you all incorporate feedback from real users and communities, which is really hard to do. Like work with real hardware and software and like for a customer or a client, which is a different experience than just playing with something in a classroom. And tonight was also really impressive to see everyone pitch and explain the intricacies of your technology and how it can achieve its impact. So really props to everyone all around. I was really impressed. So, you know, it was a really difficult decision, and actually, like, I surprised myself even in the selection. So I wanted to award the innovation award to Team 3. So I have to say, like, I think of innovation really about the design aspects and meeting the needs of your user, and also, you know, differentiating innovation from just an innovation, which might be a cool gizmo or device or whatever. And I just thought this was really thoughtfully done. I appreciated that you really revisited your question to make sure you were designing correctly or for what you had even the time to design for. And then I also just like the simplicity of it and you know, using the messaging system in an area that might be less connected, meeting the needs of the tribe, using the intergenerational aspects. And then really what you guys are doing is, you know, building a platform, and then you can really go a million different ways with that information and that data, like expand the potential of the game and how you interact with the environment or, you know, other institutions in the environment, what you can do with the aggregated data, either for governments or other, you know, for the tribe, but other users or communities in the area. So congratulations to Team 3, but also to everyone on the line. It was really awesome to be here tonight.
Thank you so much, Cassie. And yes, congratulations, Team 3. Wonderful job. Thanks for staying with us late too, and all you do for this program. Akash, we have one more judge, but maybe you should introduce him.
Sorry, 1 second. Sorry, I thought I was running into a connection issue. Yeah, Sam Rubin, He's been active through in the question and answer sessions throughout the night, but also Sam joined us a few months ago, or about a month and a half ago, and shared with us the work he's been doing with Mighty Buildings, which is a extremely innovative housing manufacturer. They do 3D printing and design build of innovative solutions to the housing crisis, to the future of building. He's just he's also just a really thoughtful, socially oriented entrepreneur. So it was great to have him today with us, and I'm sure he has something interesting to both share about his perspective on the night, and then also his recognition for best investment potential.
Well, thank you for that very warm introduction. First off, amazing job, everyone. Like, it was awesome to get to see the great work that you've been putting in all semester and kind of see it come to fruition. Really, really appreciate it. And now that you guys know that I'm handing out the award for best investment potential, you probably understand why I was asking some of the questions I was asking, and why they were focused so much there. One thing that was clear to me is that, like, you guys are all put together models that would be amazing for impact investment potential. And so that's kind of why, from that perspective, it would have been awesome to see kind of how you saw yourselves measuring that impact and everything. But I also understand that probably was not part of your the requirement, what you were tasked with, and obviously not necessarily germane to the actually solving the problem itself. That said, I think a lot of you also have great opportunities for funding what you're doing with grants, because honestly, to be straightforward, in going the investment route's not always the right choice. So that's, if there's opportunities for grants, if there's opportunities for other non-diluted funding sources, like where you're not giving up equity as a part of your funding, those are great options. And I think what you guys are doing are really pretty much all of you. There's routes that could lead to that. So I did also consider that as well when making my choice, because it's not easy. You guys all did really awesome jobs, and having formerly been in the nonprofit world, really, really appreciate the power of a good impact model and the power of a good idea to try and solve some of these big problems. And because sustainability is people, planet, and profit, that funding part is important still, because you can have the greatest idea and the greatest solution, but if you don't have the money to make it happen, then you're not going to solve that problem. You're not going to have that impact. So it's one thing to keep in mind, and that's kind of something I also picked up in the nonprofit world, is in figuring out, like, what's it look like to really, really do that messaging. So that said, and you can tell I'm maybe still deciding as I'm talking and just killing time here. So I do apologize for that. At the end of the day, I think I'm going to go with the Empower AR. And the reasons I picked you guys is, A, you're the only ones that actually put up key metrics around market size, which is always good for investors, particularly profit-seeking investors. And unfortunately, I just didn't have enough in terms of potential impact and size of impact to really measure you guys in terms of impact investing. But that would have been a wonderful thing to look at. But I thought it's a great product. I mean, I love the idea. I mean, your elevator pitch is Pokemon Go for conservation. Boom. Like, great. Like, that's awesome. So I think there's great potential there. Really liked what you did. Really liked the idea of targeting the people like zoos, educational facilities. I mean, that's definitely a very, very big market, especially looking globally, and the ability to make a unique version for each of those that applies to the animals they have, kind of where they're targeting. So I see a really, really, really big market for you guys. So you guys are who I chose. My second was probably CalSound, because I do think you actually have a huge market outside of government. As was mentioned, I think there's a great opportunity with energy producers, as well as a lot of other possibilities. So as you guys are thinking about the future, would love to, and if you need help thinking through things like that, feel free to reach out to me, sam@mightybuildings.com. If you guys are going to take this stuff forward, definitely think you guys have some wonderful ideas, and I love all of them. And I would, hope I get a chance to invest in all of them, because they're wonderful. But yeah, I had to pick one. So Empower AR it is.
Thanks, Sam. And I sent a message, by the way, a few minutes ago, where I ignore my message about the number of recognitions tonight. There's 4 folks, Sam included, who are doing recognitions tonight, and we have Andy, who's going to give us additional recognitions for the teams for their work over the course of the semester. So sorry, I didn't mean to cause any confusion in the chat earlier. But yeah, Andy, you're up.
Hey everyone, so excited to be a part of tonight. It was so great to see everyone's presentations. For those that don't know, I was the GSI for last semester, and it's just amazing to see the progression of all of you as Fung Fellows, and putting together this entire semester, which I, only heard, whispers from Dave and Dan about what was going on. And so to see and be a part of it tonight and see it happen is amazing. And so I just wanted to, recognize things that I saw that I thought were really awesome from tonight. So I just wanted to start with the Shark Seekers team. I think that we are obviously in an age of social media and leveraging the power of social media. And I was just blown away by taking social media and this other behemoth, which is community science, and its impact on research and the way that we can really effectively do conservation and tie those together. So well done tonight to actually come up with an innovative way to tie those two things that have such a powerful force in public image of conservation. And then the other thing I wanted to say is the Envision project for Clinton Park, which I was just, we have talked about in the semester about kind of setting up a user journey and what that means and explaining that and tying that to like a real sense of place. And now that I don't live in Oakland, I was like really pining to be back in Oakland and based on these stories, because I think one of the things we have an opportunity, especially now, is bringing and really putting in the forefront of what urban conservation looks like, because there's a whole groups of different communities that are just for the first time potentially interacting with their environment and seeing these green spaces and seeing the opportunity that it is to be connected to their natural world. And so I just love the story. I think it was such a well put together story and story driven innovation. So I appreciate that. And then the last thing I want to say is just talk about Cal Sound, which, I really like the framework that was really based in science and the idea of what a soundscape is. And I did my master's work on marine mammals. And so it feels really great to sort of think about what can we do to deal with sound and their impacts on marine mammals. It's such a huge and underserved impact in a space where I think we're dealing with a lot of environmental change and the ways that we impact the environment. And so I just want to give them credit for prioritizing the impacts of the Anthropocene. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can sort of describe the Anthropocene. And I think the impact of sound on marine mammals is a really unbelievable way to show off the impacts of the Anthropocene. So yeah, and I'll leave about a minute left, but again, I'm just so excited to be a part of tonight, and congrats to everybody. It was really fun.
Thank you, Andy. And yeah, I want to echo Andy's sentiments. Congrats to everyone. I don't know if everyone knows this, but these were 3-month projects, right? So all of this hard work was accomplished within the span of just 3 months or 3.5 months of, that a semester is. And so just really a tremendous accomplishment. They had not only this work, but then the work of all the other courses they were taking all over distance at the same time, which imposes all kinds of constraints and problems in terms of scheduling and just being able to work and collaborate with each other. So just we got to do dry runs last week. I was saying this in the chat. We got to see these presentations beforehand, but even today I was blown away. I was like, it was just, they took all of our critiques and everything and just made their work even better. So thank you so much to all the teams, to all the judges as well. Thank you for being here for 3 hours on a warm afternoon if you're in California. Thank you for being here. Thank you for lending us your opinions, your thoughts, your commentary, all the guests as well, the VIPs in the room, and the project partners who gave their time consistently over the last 3.5, almost 4 months to our various project teams, and supported them and provided guidance and support. So thank you for as well. I think we're right at 7 o'clock. I'm sure there's something that Dan or the team wants to say as well, but yeah, anything else?
Just thank you so much, Akash. Couldn't have summed it up better myself. What a wonderful journey. I just want to thank all the students for all their hard work. It was just, you took the expectations and just blew them out of the water. So thank you so much. I want to just really appreciate the teaching team, Akash, Andy, so glad to have you back. David, I've so much enjoyed working with you all. It's just been wonderful. We do have to say goodbye to David too. He's moving on. He's got a great new job at Trinity College, which I think he'll tell you about. Hopefully you can give us some update in Slack, but it wouldn't be right to not let one of the founders of the Fung Fellowship and our director, Jennifer Mangold, to say a final word. So I will let the final word be hers.
Well, you all have said plenty, and I'm going to make this short and quick because we have been here 3 hours. I think, first of all, to all the students, give yourself a huge round of applause. You know, this came together very quickly, the conservation track. Definitely our partners who helped us make it happen, Dan, Akash, Dave, Andy, the teaching team, and many other advisors on the back end, especially from Rosser College and Lynn and her colleagues there. You know, you really knocked it out of the park as far as what you're able to do in 3 months in a remote environment, not ever meeting your team. So, you know, really think back on that. Hopefully you'll get some time this summer to reflect on the experience. Also, regarding the fellowship, this is not the end. You are now officially Fung Fellow alums. So congratulations on that. So several of you are going to be applying to the honors program. So we will see you there. But we will be, you know, following your careers and seeing what you're doing. You all interacted with some of our alums at different events. So very excited to have you be part of that larger cohort. And you still need your t-shirts. So we will be planning in-person fun events and in thinking about how to do that over the next year. And the health track actually last night was their event and suggested some things of having you all back at boot camp or retreats, and to get some of that in-person community building that you missed out on this year. So really excited for you all to be a part of it and the inaugural class of the conservation track. So thank you, everyone. I also want to thank Adrian Greer, who also works in the background with me a lot. These events and student support and all of that doesn't take place you know, without a lot of hard work. And so she is also on here, and I want to give her a chance to say any words as well.
Thanks, Jennifer. And just, yeah, again, reiterating, this was an exceptional evening and just one representation of a lot of work that went into tonight. So just wonderful, wonderful job. And yeah, as Jennifer said, you are all part of our fellowship community moving forward, and just really excited to continue to engage with you all throughout the summer and year and moving forward. So don't be strangers, feel free to reach out. And again, just big congratulations.
Okay, I think we should call it there. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful night. Yeah, get some much needed rest. And I know some of you have finals next week. So good luck on that. Bye, everyone.
Good job, everyone.
Everybody did leave. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys. Thank you so much. David, I really wanted to give you a chance to say a word, but you see the time ticking. And I was kind of thinking that I didn't think Andy would go so long. So I was thinking, okay, he'll pull his notes together and I'll give David a chance to